Hello, this is Silas here, and I'm back for the series of I Know Great People. And this is just a series that I've been doing, just been thinking about for some time how I met all these people from different places. And I just think, like, okay, if I could find a way for all the people I know to know the people that I know, then it could be a lot better place because I've benefited a lot from knowing different people and getting information from people and using all these tools that we have with the internet and things like that. I'm able to do this a lot more. And now with this project of I Know Great People, I want to first of all thank all the people who are participating in this series. Some of you listening might soon be on this, and thanks for the people who are here on this conversation today. And my intention is to share like information about what people do versus what we think they do, because I want to bridge the gap between perception and knowledge. Because I believe the more we know about ourselves, the greater the things that we can accomplish. So today, with the first question, I'd just like to kick it over to Steve over here. If you can tell us your name, the occupation and pastime that's going to be the subject of this conversation today, and how you met my friend Steven over here.
Okay. My name is Steve. You want my last name too? My name is Steve. We'll just go by Steve, or you can call me Che. I own Perfect Burger in Costa Rica, in Tamarindo, Costa Rica.
All right.
It's basically an adventure that started 4 years ago with a dream to get a food truck, and I found myself getting a storefront earlier this year, and now it's in full swing.
Cool. How did you meet Steven over here?
How did I meet Steve? Yeah, it was like a two-part question. I'm going to break these questions down a little bit so I can. There's a lot to unpack here. The story is kind of crazy how I even got here, but I met Steve. I guess I'll start at the beginning. I met Steve working at this place called Batello, and it was on the waterfront in Newport area of Jersey City. It was an interesting experience. I was going through a transition time from moving from New Brunswick, New Jersey to Jersey City. And this job was like kind of like my stepping point in between, because I was looking for places to live up in Jersey City while I was working there. Very transitionary period for me. I met Steve there. I gravitate towards people that are interesting. Steve's a very interesting guy, and a lot of people there were pretty much like real ham and cheese Walmart brand guys, like very easy to very easy to go up into the weird circles there, because you don't want to talk to a lot of people, a lot of shit going on there you don't want to talk about. But anyways, so we had hard times produce good people, and I feel like we bonded through that experience. And then I got a job in the city at the sushi restaurant. My brother had an opportunity for me, and being a little crazy, I was like, "Yo, Cursor, you should come over too," because I like throwing monkey wrenches into things. And Steve's up, for a lot of times is a monkey wrench, because you either get Steve or you don't get Steve. But I get you, Steve. I get you, bro. So, I brought him over to there, and everyone's like, "Yo, who's this guy that he's a great worker." But much like me, we're hard to get at first. We're misunderstood, I think, a lot of times. Turns out he excelled there, and I excelled there. We stayed there for quite some time. We were both left on good terms. And when I was there, I was in 2017. This was in New York City. I'm walking around the West Village, and it's the election year, and I just see things that I began to not like about New York. And I mean, just the divisiveness of it all. People that were normally cool. Like, New York always had this very bohemian attitude, especially in the Village, where we didn't really care about a lot of those things. A lot of those things didn't affect us, especially in that community of artists and musicians and restaurant workers. And that was the Village for a large part of the 70s, 80s, and 90s even. But even to this day, it's still pretty much the same. They didn't used to care about those things. And then I see people arguing about politics, and all these crazy things are happening in the city. And I'm like, I need to get the hell out of here. So that's where it started. I went home and I spoke to my girlfriend at the time, my wife now, but my girlfriend at the time. I said, "Where would you move if you can move anywhere in the world?" And that's where the conversation started. And then she already had a job that she was doing that was remote. She was a voiceover actress at the time, doing stuff for companies for doing voiceovers and things like that. So that was her job. Like, I obviously cannot work here. I can't come here and become a waiter or a bartender here. So I had to get my own business. So I looked online, food trucks for sale in the world. I forgot how the search went. And I found this little red 1972 Volkswagen Combine that was converted to have a grill inside and a couple other things, like some small tables, but very rudimentary. And certainly it was wired. It was set up for electricity, but never wired. So I didn't even have electric on it. It was just basically a grill and a table inside. And I saw it online. And I'm like, well, this is in Tamarindo, Costa Rica. So we look into Tamarindo, Costa Rica. And we kind of get a drift on that. And then we're looking into other places around the world. And then we circled back. And I'm like, after like 3-4 months, I'm like, this is destiny. The truck's still for sale. In fact, he dropped the price on it by a couple $1,000. Wow. And I'm like, this is kind of like where I feel like destiny, or not a firm believer in destiny or fate. We're not going to get into that conversation, but I felt like something was pulling me in this direction. So I said, I'm down. I can make it work. I have some ideas for a food truck. And it started off completely different. It started off, it was going to be called the Far Out Food Truck, and I was going to paint it like a hippie van, and I was going to do like a mixed bag of like a mixed menu, like have like some breakfast items, have some like vegetarian items like granola and yogurt, and I was going to have a couple things like empanadas, and then have all these ideas. And I wrote I had like 4 months, I think 5 months. I was still working at Netta with Steve, and we would talk about it. And I was discussing ideas, I think, with a lot of people about what I was thinking about doing, but still like clueless. I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. I never owned a food truck before. And it was definitely a crazy idea at first. Looking back, I didn't really have much haste.
Yeah.
But I saw it as something that could be what I wanted. So we decided to jump, started talking with a lawyer here. We hired a lawyer. That's the first step.
Okay.
Contacted Victor, who owned the truck. He's this Czechoslovakian guy who grew up for most of his life in Arizona. So he's trilingual, speaks some Spanish, speaks obviously Czechoslovakian. And is it even called Czechoslovakia still?
No, because it would be, there's the Czech Republic and Slovakia. So he speaks one of those, presumably.
Mm-hmm. So
is the language actually named after the country though? Because some of these languages people speak in certain places are named after. Is it Slovak?
There's a language called Czech, which I think it's a Germanic language, but I'd have to check. Yeah.
Because there's Slovenia too, that has Slovenian. I don't know. It's different type of thing. It's like different things.
Interesting. Yeah. When I look at the language that he speaks, it looks like almost like Cyrillic in a way. Like the Cyrillic language. Anyways, so he had the truck, and he also owns a hotel here. So he was kind of operating the truck as a side gig for his hotel, not really concerned about making money from it. And he would often hire like some drifter to run it for a couple months, like during high season. He did it for 4 years. Seriously, he hired the surfer dude one year. I think the guy was from the US or Canada. And this guy ran it for 4 months while he was here surfing, just to make a little extra scrap. So, yeah. And he wasn't taking it very seriously. He had 2 burgers on the menu, the original, and then the perfect Swiss, which is mushrooms and Swiss. And I think he had a chicken sandwich too he was doing. But it was Alton Brown's recipe, which is kind of funny. He advertised it as such. He's like, Alton Brown's famous chicken sandwich. You're a perfect burger. So weird. So
who's Alton Brown? Is that his name? Was that whoever came up with it first?
Alton Brown was the guy that. Tell him, Steve. He's the guy
he was on the Food Network. Like he did a lot of food lessons. Yeah, like he did like lessons. Like here's how to cut an onion, and he draws like a diagram and stuff like that. Yeah.
It was called Good Eats. Was the name of the show.
So you've seen the burger, right? So did they actually see it on Alton Brown's show, and then they started doing it? And then
he was just doing his chicken sandwich recipe. The burgers he said he developed, and they were his recipes, right? So when I bought the truck, I bought the vehicle and I bought the business, including the two recipes. They were all included like legally. So I bought the whole shebang. Like I bought a business, so I own the name. It's my company's name legally. So that worked out for me. I didn't see the potential then because I was going to change the name. Like I said, I had this other idea, and then I said, well, I'm not going to change it right now. I'm just going to serve burgers because I want to get this thing up and running as soon as possible. So I think we had it up and running within the month as far as the operation. And I was just doing burgers until further notice, not really having a plan other than the one I came with. So I started looking around and I go, damn, this person's got breakfast stuff. And this restaurant over here has breakfast items and they're serving, the very popular healthy granola and fruit and yogurt parfait cups. Like all that stuff is very popular. And every place serves that and stuff with, acai and chia seeds and all this vegetarian stuff. And this guy already serves the best empanadas this side of Argentina. And this place serves the best ceviche. And this place serves the best ceviche. So why am I going to come to a foreign country where I'm already new to the game as it is in all regards, new to the country, new to the food truck business? Why am I going to make life super hard for me and compete with something that's already better here? Like this, clearly the market's already flooded with those other items. But then I looked around and everybody's got a burger, let's say at the restaurants, like the tourist restaurants, especially, everyone's got a burger offering, but like no one's really taking it serious. And that was great. That was sign number one, having boots on the ground here for like 3-4 weeks while I was getting the truck ready to go and getting my stuff together, like prepping food and stuff and figuring things out, setting up the thing with the meat. And I had a couple days with Victor, kind of training with him, and he taught me how to drive this old truck that's a manual that is not your typical manual, like 1, 2, good luck finding third, slam it hard to get it up the hill. There's like 300 pounds or 100 kilos of extra weight in the back from the grill and things like that.
Like rolling around,
the roads here are not great. I'm sure you can imagine.
Yeah. So
we have like all these external issues. I can get into detail a little bit later if you like about those things, but I want to tell you the beginning, just how this all came about. I was like, man, I should just stick with burgers. I know how to make a good burger. I'll revamp these recipes. I wasn't real happy with the bun recipe. Everything was a little bland, needed a little bit more salt. And I had so much experience around great chefs in this restaurant business for the last 25 years. Well, for the last 20, easily, I worked in fine dining. So I had this experience that was very unique to this area. Like very few people from New York, New Jersey come here and decide to start a restaurant. And then even less people decide to come here and do exactly what I'm doing. So I'm like, I feel like I had this advantage of having all this exposure to some of the best food on the planet Earth in New York City. Went to all these cool restaurants and had these cool experiences working in the business, trying all this good wine. I'm like, dude, I can just parlay this into something cool here. So that's where the idea first came. And I decided not to do anything like empanadas or ceviche because I feel like it's just disrespectful. Are you going to go to like Jamaica, being a newbie and start doing jerk chicken? You're crazy. You're going to get ran out of town. You won't make it. So it's a similar idea here. You're just not going to, you're not going to compete with somebody that's doing it better than you and has the knowledge better than you. So I started developing the burger menu. And I revamped the recipes, made them better, used fresher ingredients. I was still using the meat distributor at the time that he told me about, which was from Nicaragua. So I was having this truck, being a news guy here, not really speaking a lot of Spanish, trying to coordinate with these guys from Nicaragua, this company from Nicaragua that was serving this grass-fed meat that was high quality and delivering it to my door that I had to send GPS because there's no addresses here for the most part in the hood. So, I'm serious. You can't just like, where is it? Past the palm tree, look for the school, make a right, 300 meters on your right, past the cemetery. That's how we give directions.
Do they use like post office for most of the mail and things like that? Post office.
We do have some post office, but we also have a lot of independent people that will will import things here, or I get most of my things delivered to this art store that I know the woman that owns it, and it's in the plaza next to the supermarket area. It's like, it's a nice store. You know what I mean? This is like, you could get the thing delivered to a shack, but I don't know that guy. I know this girl. So I get the things delivered here. But so it's a little difficult to get things, and I didn't know where to get items. Like, I had basil in my backyard, thankfully, but to make the pesto. But I'm like, where do I get this? Where do I get that? Where's the cheapest place for this? It was literally like a scavenger hunt. Now I'm really good at the game. 4 years later, I'm really good at the game. But when you're trying to run a business in the beginning and you don't know where to get more pickles, let's say, you're scrambling. Now it's so apparent to me. Like, there's different stores for different items, and it's a lot like the States in a way. Like, there are supermarkets, like, you can go and get pretty much get anything you need, but we live in the middle of nowhere, even in the scheme of Costa Rica standards. Like San Jose, it's a city. It's a huge city, and they have, like, you at a supermarket, you can get like some lobster and some cool stuff and some cheese whiz, and head back to the mall and get some Nikes and go see a movie. The movie's out. It's a city. Like, here, I live near the beach, so think about beach anywhere in the world. And then I live in Guanacaste, which is, for the most part, the most country-ass area of Costa Rica, and the last of the provinces to join the Republic. So we're kind of treated as a province. Guanacaste, Santa Cruz is let's say the county where I live. And then Tamarindo is the town area, let's say, population about 6,000 in Tamarindo itself. And then outside of Tamarindo, I live in an area called Villarreal, which is more like the barrio, like the true barrio. I love the community here. It's a little bit more what I grew up with in New Jersey. It's a little bit more towny in a way, and kind of like a small, bustling little area with a barbershop and a liquor store and a little supermarket and blah, blah, blah. But it's more real to me than Tamarindo, because Tamarindo is just, to me, a bunch of fake people. I'm probably going to get some people seeing this, but they might disagree. But now there's some fakeness going on. It's we call Tamarindo, the real talk. I was told this when I moved here. They call Tamarindo, specifically Tamarindo or Tamagringo, as we affectionately call it. It's the home of the wanted and the unwanted. And I've met the unwanted. There's a lot of grifters here. There's a lot of former criminals. There's a lot of like advantageous hippie types who come here and will grift off people. Like a lot, like house sitters. What's your occupation? I'm a house sitter. Man, that's not a job. You're a house sitter, bro. Come on. You're a pilferer. You pilfer from these houses, right? That's like the common practice here. Things like that, or the guy that will sell you some property and like get back to Canada, that's the thing here, And then you find out he doesn't even own the property. He just sold you somebody else's stuff, and you go to court and you realize it's not your property. You just gave this guy $50,000. That type of things have happened here, much like it happens in a lot of places like here where expats go, because it's money, money attracts a lot of nonsense, and money attracts all the good things too, like the existence of Perfect Burgers, because this area is slowly turning into this international little town because of COVID, and everybody's tired of the nonsense of the real world. A lot of people are moving down here quite rapidly over the last year, and certainly more in the coming years. But I'm kind of happy that I solidified my place here now, 4 years ago, because I gained so much knowledge in this short period of time about how everything works here. Like, just like I said before, where to get the cheapest and best onions, let's say, was a task that I had to figure out. So let's get back to the truck real quick. Once I figured out the menu, I had 3 burgers. I think the first 3 were, I don't even know if I had the barbecue on it yet. The barbecue, I make my own barbecue sauce with local Costa Rican coffee as one of the primary notes, and has a nice fruity tinge too from the the balsamic vinegar, things like that. So it's a really unique barbecue sauce, and I developed it. I mean, I must have made it like at least 100 times just while developing it. Just so many times of just reworking it and rewriting the recipe was kind of more difficult than I even imagined it to be. And it's still kind of developing and changing even now, 4 years later. But I created the very rudimentary menu and then hit the streets with my wife. So it was just me and Christy on the truck for the first few months, just winging it, not really understanding much about the terrain, not really being clear about the laws, even though we did have some paperwork. We were still operating outside of the law to a certain degree because a lot of the food truck laws here, it's different in the city, but here, the law was dragging its tail behind the actual movement of the people. So we had like 4 food trucks, let's say in town, or I think there was 4 or 6. I forgot the number. The number has changed so many times in the last 4 years. I was like, well, I'm just going to play it by ear. And it's kind of like the wild, wild west to a certain degree here also. So I just hit the streets and started selling burgers. We had no real problems with the people, of course, but people are great here.
Yeah.
Even the street people, like the drug dealers and the prostitutes, they all, and the taxi drivers, they all showed me a lot of love because I move with a certain level of respect to everybody. And I think people, and I'm genuine to a fault. So I think people gravitate towards that. So it's easy to communicate, even if I don't speak the language, then I'm cool. So I had no problems with there, but I had a lot of problems with the municipality coming by. They explained to me kindly the first few times and not so kindly the last couple times was like, you can't just be pulling up, bro, and doing this basically. But I'm like, then I find out if you have permission from the owner of this place and you're on this property, you could do it. And I'm finding all these loopholes. And it's really a headache. And the truck doesn't drive like a dream. It drives quite like a Sherman tank. That's what it feels like inside. It's loud. It's obnoxious. It's bouncy. So my brother, Jeff, who Steve knows, he comes, I think around month 4 or 5. I think he came in November, I think, something like that. And he stayed with me till the end of January, early February. He was a Michelin star restaurant manager for quite a number of years. He opened Lincoln as a server in Lincoln Restaurante in Lincoln Center, one of Jonathan Beno's restaurants, who's a protege of Thomas Keller in the per se lineage. So he was not the name drop, but it's a good line of work. I was basically what I'm saying. I was very grateful to have my brother with that much experience come here and help me start my burger business. So we developed a bunch of things, taught a lot of protocol, and still it's on this truck. So it's only a 2-man op. You don't really have an operation outside of 2 men or 2 bodies. You can't fit more. It's hot. It's dangerous. The propane tank's sitting right between my legs for the most part while I'm cooking. It's just like, it's sketch all around, when we first got here, there was Hurricane Nate. This was like the worst Costa Rica got hit by a storm in 15, 20 years. Like I'm on the west coast of Costa Rica, all the way in the north, as far west as you can go. And we don't get hit with a lot of crazy storms like the East Coast does in the Pacific side, right? I'm sorry, the Atlantic side. So we don't really have to worry about a lot of stuff. We get rains, we have a rainy season, but it's not like a hurricane. So we received a hurricane my first year here, just to add to the mix. And we ended up getting together with this jiu-jitsu academy who was doing some work at this local barrio who got hit hard and was in a impoverished area as it was. So we decided to go donate some burgers and some time to the local community. Nothing crazy, just like 120 burgers we gave out to the kids, real simple. And everyone was real happy. We were kind of like, we thought it was a good opportunity to kind of solidify ourselves with the community. And it was just an overall good feeling. And it was a great experience. Leaving the place, I'm driving my hunky janky truck, like, and on this dirt road, and it's rainy season, and I lost it. I lost first gear going up this small hill, and it did fall into a ditch, and I almost completely toppled on my side. Almost. I was like 70% on my side, like in a ditch. Tires off the ground, like 3 feet. Because I started rolling backwards and I lost control of the truck, and I didn't realize the ditch was there because you can't really see out of the back of the Volkswagen van, except in the mirror. Couldn't see it. And I went into a ditch.
Who was in the car at this time?
Just me. Me and my gear. My wife's in the truck in front of me, and our personal vehicle. So I get out, she gets out, we're both in tears and we're flipping out. And luckily, a guy who not only spoke English, but also had a really cool truck, like a big truck. Like, do you need help? And we're like, heck yeah. So he hooks up and pulls me right out. I was like, man, oh man, you saved my ass. Almost lost my investment, literally that day. No good deed goes unpunished, Good intentions, what they say, the path to hell is paved with good intention, right? I go out there to do some good work, and I almost lose my truck twice. So I pull out. I realize I'm going the wrong way. I'm having problems with this transmission. And I'm like, let me turn around. And I back up, and I almost slid into another ditch. Oh, I was like, I'm done. There's an emergency brake on. I'm like, I'm calling a tow truck. This is not happening. I ended up going home in the truck, the other car with my wife, and then going back the next day and picking up the truck with the tow truck. And that's pretty much what started the problems with the truck. It was just like, without getting too much into it, one thing led to another. Like I basically taken into the mechanic, and much like the States, they're all pretty shady, to some degree. They're all going to either fix your car right or not fix your car at all and just keep on taking money from you. It's not different anywhere.
There's like that one meme. I don't know if you've seen it, where it's like, take my car to the mechanic. He's like, no, take the car to the mechanic to change the oil. I might put it up on the screen here. And then it's like, then the mechanic says like, well, while we're checking your oil, and then it's like Mace, kind of, I think it was like Mace kind of leaning out the window with like the shh. It's like, don't say anything. Like, I'm not listening to you.
It's like, well, I found 3 other things that were wrong while I was looking down there. I loosened up some bolts on your tire. You might need to check that later. Yeah, it's pretty much like that. So I was dealing with the 1972 Volkswagen. It already had 40 years on it. It wasn't getting better. So we ended up aligning with some night markets, and we did have some outlets that were pretty much guaranteed money and kind of headache free. And doing the night market, specifically the Tamarindo night market that was started by my friend Sheldon. This guy from Canada who is, he's not old enough to be retired, but he kind of made his money and semi-retired down here.
Yeah,
he's a few years older than me, but not much. I won't put him on blast and tell him his age bracket, but he's a little older than me. And he was well, I don't want drama. It's small. It's inconsequential to the story, but he ended up starting a night market. And very cool, like a lot of vendors and people making jewelry and, selling pipes and homemade ice cream and drinks and homemade pizzas. And my truck being the big red Volkswagen, it was like a big draw. So I parked right in the front, and my burger recipes were developed by my brother and I. We make a pretty good burger. People started really liking us and liking the product. And that's pretty much what's even lent us to have a reputation, because at least 3 or 4 times since I've been here, this restaurant was only an idea in my head, where there was times when the truck wasn't even running, like we weren't operating it. And the only place that Perfect Burger even existed was on paper, which was a scary thing, because if I gave up at any one time and just decided it wasn't worth it, my crazy dream wasn't worth it, then it could have easily went to the wayside, because extenuating circumstances have tried to assassinate this business at least once, and then more likely more than once, where something came up out of nowhere and almost took me out. But some guy who was not so successful but not so successful, this older guy I met here who owns a business, who's multi-millionaire, he said, with a lot of problems, but he gave me some good advice. If you listen to the fool, sometimes the fool will give you good advice, right? So the fool said, well, I wouldn't call him a fool, but in this case, he was the fool. He said, he was like, he's wasted. He was like, I had this business and I screwed it up and I lost all my money and I rebuilt it. Point of conversation is never give up. And I was going through a point at time when I needed to hear that. I needed to hear this from a random person, and I paid attention, and I heeded the warning. I heeded what he said. I didn't just be like, oh, some drunk guy who is giving me unsolicited advice, which I could have easily done. I think I needed to hear that more than ever. I never gave up. It always rang with me when I wanted to give up. So I had to go back home first year. I went to Myrtle Beach where my brother was living. My brother moved from New York to Myrtle Beach to be closer to my mom. Mm-hmm. And I went down there to work at a restaurant at a Carrabba's. I don't know if you guys ever hear of Carrabba's?
No.
I haven't either.
Well, don't bother. It was, if you can imagine an upscale Olive Garden, that's what it was. All right? Just worked with like guys that were doing crystal meth in their car on their break, and some good old boys from Myrtle Beach. You know, Myrtle Beach is they call it the white trash Riviera. I don't know if I get canceled for that, but that's what they call it. That's what they call it. I'm nobody's gonna cancel me here.
And also, white trash, white. That's like acceptable group to make fun of.
Yeah. Well, you don't have. What I found out is you don't have to be white to be white trash. It's just a term we apply to people. You can just like, you can be
an acceptable racial slur to use or racial related slur to use. It's not necessarily a cancelable offense to say that.
Right. If you,
it's like how minorities are white supremacists now with the whole recent string of elections. Yeah.
If you got 3 cars. If you got 3 or 4 cars in a driveway and only one of them work, you might be white trash. Yeah. I'm just saying. But that's Myrtle Beach in a way. If you were in a NASCAR hat, you might be. I'm not saying you are, but you might be. Anyways, so I was down in Myrtle Beach having this horrific experience. The only good thing was I was with my bro, and that was a good time. He was going through a weird time too. He just moved down there. He didn't really know a lot of people. So there was that. Came back here, decided to do a GoFundMe. GoFundMe was humbling, to say the least. Mm-hmm. We didn't get everything we needed done, but we got some stuff done from the money from that. Was grateful for that. Kept us alive a little bit longer. Still uncertain, what was going to happen because the truck needed a lot of work. Then after that, some time passed, and then I went back to Myrtle Beach again. Second time. This was at this point 2 years ago. And went back there, had a much better experience this time. Worked at a better restaurant, met better people. My brother was in a better place. He had met more people, had more friend circle, much better experience. But when I was there, I was like, this is not my life. I'm not a worker. I had to change my mindset to a certain degree when I was at my restaurant business. At the restaurant Steve and I worked at. Because when you're a worker bee, you're not king, you're not the queen, let's say. We'll use the bee analogy. I'm not gonna say the king, the queen bee. You're not the head of it. So you think differently as an owner versus as an employee. And I think a lot of people stay in this mindset as an employee because it's just comfort zones for them. Yeah. They can easily transition, whether you're at JP Morgan or if you're at Per Se or wherever, you can easily transition from like wait staff to management to GM to sommelier to owner to start your own bar, start your own restaurant consulting business. This is all opportunities for you that if you have a knowledge base, you can do. But most people choose not to. Most people are like, you know what? I make $100,000. I make $100,000 a year almost here at this restaurant in Jersey City. Why am I going to go work at La Bernardine? Who cares? Most people just have this attitude. They just want. They would rather just not do it. But
the difference between capability and ability.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So all this stuff was happening, and I was still pushing along, and ultimately, everything kept on pointing to why do you? I asked myself, why do I not have a storefront? What's holding me back from that? There's so much, with the permits and this and that and the laws, and I'm too new here to go to the court system and go to war for like the food truck laws here, Yeah. I wasn't championing that cause. I just kept on pointing me in the direction of something else. So when I was home in Myrtle Beach, I say home because my mom are there. Myrtle Beach is not my home for the record. I'm from New Jersey. But exit 9.
New Jersey.
Nobody from New Jersey talks like that, by the way. It's people from Staten Island saying, where you from, Jersey? It's not people from New Jersey, man. People from New Jersey actually pretty talk normal. Except people that live too close to Philly, they don't talk normal. I'm going home.
Anyway. Yeah, because my grandparents had a house in Wildwood, and that's kind of that Philadelphia crowd. So yeah, we saw a lot of those types of people there. I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I love Philly.
I have a friend.
I'm not gonna talk shit. I love Philly.
I think it was a friend of mine, either Lucy or was it Jack? Or somebody was telling me about like somewhere else in the world they have a name for like Jersey Shore people, and they called them like it was Jersey something. There's like some kind of term they refer. I don't know. If I remember it, I'll bring it back up. But yeah, you're saying
Jersey,
okay.
Well, in New Jersey they call them bennies. Down the shore they call them bennies. Like when the Staten Islanders or the people from Long Island or New York come out to the beach in New Jersey, they call them all the bennies are visiting. And they're usually referencing like the shore types of the sculpted hair, and the tans and the sculpted bodies and the tribal tattoos and the
that stuff's weird.
It says like I love mom on my arm, but I really mean it because I'm Italian. I really mean it though. I love my mother. I put it here. I love it. Just to remind myself, I love my mother. I love my mother. Of course you do, bro. I know you do. That's why your girlfriend looks just like your mom, except 40 years younger. Anyways, that's the Jersey Shore, bro. Come on.
What's going on there?
Yeah, everyone's just trying to, all Italian guys and down, just trying to find somebody as good as mom. Just find somebody as good as you. I can say that because I'm Italian, That's pretty much what it is. But going back to the idea of like being in Myrtle Beach and just hating life. Not really hating life, but just being like, this is not my life. The first time I was hating life, second time I went down, I was like, oh, this is great, but this is not what I came here to do. I have a truck sitting in my yard collecting dust and weeds and ants. So I decided to do something about it. So I started doing like, things like The Secret, doing like manifestation techniques, but I had to physically bring it into existence, right? So I started doing this thing where I would tap my finger. And I would think about this meditation where I would envision my restaurant. And I kept on saying, all I need is like this hole. I just need a box with a hole, like a window, and a kitchen in the back, and I could serve right from there, just like a little thing on the side of the road. And I just kept on envisioning it and seeing what it looked like inside and really being detailed. And I would start off with just doing it for like a few seconds. Then I started graduating to like doing it for a minute. And then I would just do it every day, every chance I got. Having a bad day at work, I would just think about this vision, and I would touch my fingers like this in order to bring it into physicality. So if I was having a bad day at work, and let's say a table was pissing me off and I was going to flip out, or not even flip out, but like walk out or whatever. I don't need this job, that attitude. I would touch my fingers like this, and it would remind me what I was here to do and what I was there for. But I wasn't wasting my time. And the world tested me. Like I had generally a good experience at this restaurant, but two individuals almost tested my freedom there. Like two individuals almost tested my freedom. I won't get into it. One guy had a problem. He wanted to fight me. I'm like, you're a grown man. He's like 40. He was like 41 too. He got mad at me about something. Like, I'm not ruining my whole entire life in going to jail in Myrtle Beach to prove a point. You're out of your mind. You're silly. I ended up blowing this guy a kiss one day, and then it was like over after that. I disarmed him, blew him a big old kiss. And then another guy was, I was outside smoking a cigarette, and he said something kind of racist. Well, it wasn't kind of, it was racist. I don't know what he said, but he said, if you know what I mean, after he said it. And I go, no, I don't know what the hell you mean. And I flipped out on him. I was like, if you were 60-something years old, I'd beat the hell out of you right now. I'd beat the white right off of you. And I flipped out on him because I took that shit personal because, of where I stand on certain things. So, yeah, he almost tested me too. And I just said, I was like I was not even 1 week away from leaving. I'm like, nah, this is not going to happen. So I let it slide. I gave him a chastising, but I let it slide. Don't say that stuff around me. And I kept it moving. Ended up going back here and still not knowing what to do with the truck. Decided to refurbish it. Like, it needs to be cleaned. It's disgusting inside. Had like 2 seasons on it. Needed to be cleaned, deep cleaned. I mean, we cleaned it every night, but it's a truck that produces grease. It needs to be cleaned. We brought it to my friend's house, who's my non-financial partner, Carlos. He's like my right-hand man. Real smart, intuitive guy. He comes from an education background. He was a professor teaching English and history at university and school and stuff. Decided to come to Tamarindo to kind of start things with his family, restart things with his family because he was doing a graduate program, all this other stuff. He ends up finding his way here, gets a job with me. We had a brief stint in between all this at this restaurant, at this golf course. It was a mini golf. They rented us out the commissary. It turned out to be a bad business deal. I won't really get into what happened, but it turned out to be almost another way that the universe almost took me out for making a bad decision. Or let's say a decision in haste. I started guarding my brand a little bit more as I moved through this, and making it more of mine. So fast forward to just right before pandemic, we started refurbing the truck, got it real clean, broke everything out, took everything out, broke everything down, cleaned everything, sanded everything inside with I had blood dripping out of my knuckles. I really made this truck through blood, sweat, and tears mine, I think that's what part of it was having to own it, at some deep level. I had to reclaim this vision, so me and my friend sat in this yard for 4 months before pandemic and then did it. So almost right when we started looking for places to put the truck, now that it had been kind of little love was put into it, pandemic hit almost simultaneously. We were done one week and next week this shit happened. And I was like, well, good thing we didn't make a move financially because it could have been ugly. I could have just wasted $2, $3, $5,000 if I decided to put this truck in a food court where I was paying for rent and things like that and products. And a lot of stuff goes into it. So I didn't move. Ended up not making a move, sat it out through pandemic. And then in October, when it started to subside a little bit here, people started going out a little bit. I was like, we got to do something. So I decided to start delivering food, strictly delivery or pickup from my friend's farm, his front yard, pretty much, where the truck was parked. The idea was to cook off the truck and then deliver it in my Honda CRV. That's 25 years old.
This is October, of course, last year you're talking about.
This was October of 2020, right? Right.
Yeah.
So I said, we just got to do something. I was losing my mind at home. I had listened to every podcast I wanted to listen to. I was I made bread. I made what did I make? I made a sous vide sauce. You ever heard of a sous vide sauce, guys? Like the onion sauce that they use in French cooking.
Yeah.
Man, I put it through 3 strainers. It was smooth, like velvet. This is what I did during pandemic. I made ribs. I made all types of, all types of food and homemade pizza dough and perfected that. So I was done. I was like, I need to do something. Hop back on the truck. We started doing this shit again. And it was real basic, man. It was a sweaty, hot finca. I was operating at his home with his wife and his teenager there, and the cows on the property and horses, and it's wet and moist during rainy season, very humid. And I questioned everything about my existence while I was out there. I was like, what the hell are we doing? But I knew we had to do it. I just knew something about it. We just had to do something. We had to start delivering it. This thing is too good. We developed too many good recipes. I developed too many good recipes just to let it go. My brother and I and various other people had their input over the years of helping me develop certain ideas. And it wasn't just me. It was a lot coming from my close crew, let's say. But I was like, I can't die. So we just did something, and it was real shaky. We had a couple weird nights of no sales, and it rained all night, just depressing. Or we had, a couple times we had great sales. We're like, oh, this gave us the inspiration, but somewhere along the line, we just didn't quit.
Yeah.
And then we got to January 2021. I'm like, you know what? I learned a lot through history, studying history over the years. And I noticed in the Great Depression, a lot of big names that we see nowadays, like Arrowman, on every railroad tie in the United States, it says Arrowman Company. Well, that company, if I remember correctly, was a no-name company right before the Depression, the Great Depression hit. And somehow he had the finances to push through it. And now they're one of the biggest railroad tie companies in the world. They make everything. metal.
There's some pressures of selection in those kind of tough times, like they kind of concentrate on certain things, or it's like a seed where it's like, okay, if you were on shaky ground before, this is definitely going to wipe you out. So, but the people who can find a way through it and also take advantage, I guess, of that pent up demand out of it, and like think about new ways to do things. Like if that didn't break you, the regular struggles of running a business are probably not going to break you. You're going to be able to like work.
You exactly hit it on the nose. That's exactly the approach I took. I said, well, shoot, I've already been on shaky ground so many times here already. Like, what's the worst that could happen? But I wasn't even thinking in that, because I think that's certainly negative going into that. I was almost like in a trance in a weird way. Like my wife had said to me, like, did you see that place is open where we always said we should go? I'm like, oh yeah, I saw it. Yeah, we should look into that. And I already said no like 5 times to it, like in like the last 2 years. So why would I say yes now? And I was like, you know what? It's better than the sweaty, rainy, humid farm that I'm selling burgers from currently. And like when you're working in somebody's home, it's messy because it's their home and it's a domestic situation, as well as I'm operating on the farm, on the truck outside of their home. It's just like, it was just chaos on all levels, and I interrupted their life to their defense. It wasn't like, wasn't saying their family's driving me crazy. It's just that it's a hard environment to do both.
It's a hard workplace,
yeah. So we ended up looking into this. I got a good vibe from it. I saw it was changing, it was developing, it was getting a little bit more bustle. And I think I was searching for something, some glimmer of hope outside of the pandemic. Because I think I had it better than a lot of people, especially being here. I sat by my pool, didn't really do much. I don't really do much anyways, but I enjoyed it. I did a lot of learning, did a lot of cool things for myself. And I wasn't really downtrodden. And I looked at history and I said, well, I didn't spend the money then. And I think crypto helped a little bit for us, but we had a little bit of extra playroom. Like, let's just do it. Let's just jump now. It's like, it seems crazy for most people because everybody was shutting restaurants down when I was opening one up. It was insane. And also dealing with getting the patents or the permits for my business were actually a little bit easier than normal because nobody was doing this stuff during the pandemic. So even though it was the beginning of the year, it was still a little bit remnants of pandemic. Like obviously we're still wearing masks and following protocols. And I'm going through, for Costa Rican standards, I zipped through this process. Because it takes like on the average 2-3 months and multiple trips to the municipality to get this stuff done. Thankfully, my partner Carlos is fluent in both languages. He was a great help because he allowed me to continue. Whereas in most cases, I would have given up due to my limitations as a Spanish speaker, as well as a local. Like he's got the local intel because he's from San Jose. Even though he's from the city, he understands the country and how people think here and how the system operates, just like any one of us in our respective places. So thankfully, he was able to help me through this a lot more better than even a lawyer could have. He became my homie, through all this nonsense. He stuck by me since I hired him when we were at the golf course. This was almost 3 years ago. So I've been working with him for 3 years, and he's stuck by me through thick and thin. Even when I couldn't pay him, he was still around as my friend in the periphery. So when I got the business back going, he was the first person I called because he understood it. And you can train smart people. You can't really train somebody who's not intelligent. He didn't have really much restaurant experience, if anything. He worked he worked in a restaurant in town, but not really to my level. So, not saying my level, whatever, but like, understanding it from a level that I understood it from like a New York City restaurant guy,
just experience.
He definitely didn't get that, but he's an intellectual. He's smart. He's able to think on his feet. He's got a good personality. So you put all that together and the willingness to learn, you can teach that person anything. Because even a smart person that doesn't want to learn, you can't teach them anything. It was a kind of a perfect storm where he was like, "Yeah, dude, you know it. he's certainly not humble in some ways, but he's certainly humble in a lot of ways where it helps my business, where he's like, you know better than me, I'll follow you. Just like he's a history major. If he's telling me a story, I just shut up and listen. Because although I'm a history guy, I'm not a history expert. So I just shut up and listen. And I think it's knowing your place as a kind of a, trying to learn from everybody.
That kind of whole thing, if you're confident that you know how to do something, chances are you're confident because you put in the time, you put in the work. I hate how people say, oh, you got to do the work, because people who say that actually don't actually work. They don't actually do the work. But once you've done the work, you realize how much it takes for you to be confident. It's not that you're being boastful. It's not like you're showing off. If you're confident in what you do, like take a LeBron James. LeBron James is confident that he can go out there and ball out because he's put in the thousands of hours. He's put in the $10 million into his body every year. He's reading the film. So if he goes and he's talking to, like, I think Odell Beckham is his friend, and Odell's breaking down stuff about football, LeBron's not like, oh, I played football in high school, so I'm break that down for you. He understands I put in this much time to be good at basketball, so I know when I haven't put in anywhere close to the amount of work it takes to be good at something else, and they can recognize somebody else doing that amount of time. Right. They can say, okay, I'm listening to you on that aspect, I think.
Yeah, once you're at a certain level, you respect any other person at that level. It's just what it is,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I take a humble approach to everything. I'm towards that little. I'm going to just close my door real quick.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
Sorry.
Okay.
You have to maintain it as a business owner. It's been the most humbling job I've ever had, because at the end of the day, I don't know anything.
Yeah.
I know stuff. I have all this knowledge from my years in the restaurant business, right? But like, oh shoot, now you're driving the ship. And it's a lot different when your hands are on the steering wheel than when you're sitting in the back going, hey, just turn left up there, because you're not driving. So all the glory, and I pretty much run my business almost like a little bit of a militaristic attitude towards, like, I treat it like a fraternal team, right? Like, we're all in this together, and I kind of take like the general approach, right? I don't run it like the military, but I take a approach like a general. We're going into battle. The service is battle. When you're in a restaurant, cooking burgers is a hot, dangerous job. It's either you can take the general analogy or like the captain of the pirate ship, right? Because the kitchen's kind of like full of a bunch of guys like pirates. They all have piercings and tattoos, and they curse a lot, and they drink a lot of beer. They're a lot like pirates, chefs, So I take that attitude in the sense that we're all in this together, and we have to take the team effort, and if we all sink, we all sink. And if we all rise, we all rise. But as a business owner or as a captain of the ship, you have to realize that with the glory comes all the other stuff too, Like, I have to make hard decisions often. Like, oh shoot, should I spend this money now? Is this smart to do this now? Because like, you get in your head about things like what's going to happen with this, and then there's anticipations. So I took advice from a lot of good friends of mine, and what everyone told me, especially my friend Bill, who's got a lot of manager experience, he's like, dude, you just got to follow the books, man. Get your shit together with the numbers, get the stuff together with the system, create a system, because the business operates by the system, and the system operates without you physically being there. Because my goal is not to be an employee there, because I'm not the employee and I can't legally work there. I'm the owner, and I have to unfortunately own, which encompasses like the strategies and the recipe development and menu presentation and what the flyers look like and the advertisements. And that's my world, And I used to just cook, which was my safety net. That's where I like it. I feel very comfortable cooking, but unfortunately, I can't grow the business cooking. I need somebody to cook there, and then I'm finding other roles to fulfill. But
because you were telling us about, like, that was in January or February when you were going through the process. So now you've opened an actual store, right? So that's
we opened up the storefront February 16th, I think, or February 17th.
Okay, cool.
We opened up the storefront, and long story short, it's been a bit of a challenge, but fun challenges. We've learned a lot in the last few years with the business, and the menu expanded out recently. We now have 11 burgers. We have a bunch of different types of we call them top fries, where fries with different types of toppings, like cheese fries with jalapenos and bacon and Swiss cheese, and chili fries and vegetarian chili fries we have also. And so we expanded the menu a bunch. And in the last few months, we learned a lot and started developing all the things that we were advised to do, like got our books together, and we got a POS system for the restaurant, and it's more organization. And it's a lot different from running it on the truck, but I think the truck kind of in a weird way gave me a lot of practical experience. Yeah. Like if you can survive that, just showing up every day to the restaurant or every other day to the restaurant and opening up the door. For me, I'm saying we're open every day, but like for me to just to show up now and deal with the problems I deal with, it's so much more of a relief than dealing with the truck and all the nonsense that came with the truck from the municipality and the transit police. And because it's an old truck, it doesn't even look like it should be driving. We don't have an engine now, by the way, in it, and that's right now the truck's in limbo. I got some paint. We're thinking about maybe after our busy season, maybe in April, getting it transported to the city and getting an overhaul on it, and either selling it or putting it back into operation in some capacity as a satellite business.
Yeah, that could be cool. I mean, I was thinking about that. Yeah, that's probably going to come up later in the questionnaire, but I was thinking this with that. Yeah, you can have it as an advertising thing. You put the thing on the side, or if your business gets big enough, now you're doing like events and things like that. Someone's like, "Oh, can you cater for us? We're having a wedding." So instead of having like your like, from the kitchen, you'd use the truck and drive there, and you have it there and things like that, the reception or something.
That was exactly what we were doing for a while too. Was doing a lot of private events. And one story real quick was my brother and I got contracted to do this event. It was like a party of 35 at this guy's house who sold some type of oil extracting technology to like some Chinese company and made like almost $1 billion. Like, and he was renting a house here for like, no, seriously, no exaggeration, it was like $28,000 a week to rent the house. It was like a huge 4-villa complex.
Wow.
Multi-house. And it was right in the beach, right near the beach, man. So my brother, I throw it in every chance I get. Because I live near the beach. Like, where's that store? Like, right near the beach. Like, shitty Jamaican accent. Shitty patois. So anyways, we ended up going to this party. And it was party 35, and it was like 300 quick bucks. It was like, I don't even know what the hell we negotiated that. It was like $10 a burger. I forgot what the hell we were doing. Oh, it was just great money for a short period of time. We got up there. We thought we were going to be cooking for this party. They were all on something. And they were like, oh, we're going to get our burgers later. Just make them right now. Leave them on this tray. Get out of here. I'm like, all right, sounds great. So we made 35 burgers. It took us like 25 minutes. Wrapped them all up. Put them on the burger. We like labeled them with the Sharpie on the paper, like what was what. We gave to them. They're like, see ya. And we couldn't start our truck to leave.
Oh no!
I'm sorry. We lost the truck going there. We got there. That's what it was. We got there. We had to get up this big hill. The truck was losing the gear and coming uphill. It was running, but the transmission's always been kind of a little janky, so we couldn't get it up the hill. And when we saw these like 5 dudes from Calgary, a bunch of bros. And they were like, they just drank a bunch of beer and stuff. They were all looked like football player frat dudes. And they were like, yo, can you help pushing the truck? They're like, yeah. And they're like, all right, let's go, boys. And this hill was steep, but it was like, thankfully, it was pretty short. And these 5 football player looking dudes just pushed along with my brother and myself. We helped push it up the hill and got into this rich guy's, pad, where his driveway was. We ended up cooking. We couldn't leave the truck, so we ended up leaving the truck there for like 2-3 days. And the guy's like, he emails me. He's like, yeah, you got to get the truck out of my property, man. Like, sorry, man. But we were doing stuff like that for a while. We were doing stuff like that every now and again, doing like weddings and private events. It's still an option, but right now the truck doesn't run. So if you want the truck to come up to your private B&B mansion and do something for the wedding party, we can do it, but we're gonna have to charge you the cost of the tow truck.
Yeah.
That, which some people are gonna be like, oh. So we're not really offering that right now. We're just developing our delivery business a little bit more. That's always been a thing. That's what kept us alive during the pandemic was delivery, and it's still one of. I would probably say it's probably I don't know 40%, 45% of our sales is delivery. Because people don't want to drive to.
Yeah.
So especially in like whether it's inclement weather or here, like sometimes the road is just bad. You know, where you live, you got to go down a big hill and then go on a dirt road for let's say 2 kilometers and then go pick a Perfect Burger right off the main road. We're right on the main road. Like our area is not hard to get to. It's just that sometimes where you live might be hard to access. Our delivery guys are on motorcycles, so
yeah, they do that here too.
They're good. Yeah. So that's basically it. That's pretty much where we're at now.
Yeah. That's that was really an interesting story. Like there's a lot of things and a lot of things to go in there. We'll probably go to rehash some of these things and when we get to the questionnaire. But yeah, with Steven,
I feel like I answered the questionnaire kind of.
Yeah, you did do a lot of them. Don't apologize at all. Like I like how these work just in like organic ways as they go. And there's going to be some other things because there's some questions and ideas and things that I've had from the things that you mentioned. I think we'll be able to get more into stories. But with Steven, like I met him also back in New York, and I'm pretty sure just from the time when you were working with him together, he's mentioned you before, and there's been stories that he's said with the two of you before. And it was like funny you're talking about like he's like a monkey wrench, and we've done like a couple of talks of like Philadia and different places that he's worked. And one of the things he was kind of joking about with Philadia is like he said like Philadia's last manager, as if he's a lot of places he's worked at have actually closed. And you were talking about he's a monkey wrench. You called him Neta, and Neta also closed, and that was one of the places kind of like.
Interesting.
I should mention. I wanted to mention before I forget. We had a nickname when we worked together. Steve Tuck used to call us the odd desk couple because the joke is that he and this other guy were the odd couple. But he's like, "You guys are the odd desk couple."
That was definitely
your camera went off center, by the way.
Yeah, your camera. You look.
Yeah.
I hit my wire.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to Steve Tuck. By the way, he kind of disappeared. We talked a bit after. He worked at Neta and then Boomoo closed, and we tried reaching out, but like he hasn't been on social media and he's not responding to his phone. So I hope he's okay, but I don't know. He just like disappeared.
I think I reached out to him. I don't know when I first moved here. I still had a cell phone, but yeah, New York City got weird. Yeah. So who knows what happened to a lot of people? A lot of people left. A lot of people that I felt like were on the cusp of being what was really going on. They just got out. But what was your question about you said something about, Kershaw being a monkey wrench in the best way. I feel like, I'm kind of the same way. That's why I joke about it. It's like, I feel like I'm a bit of that mentality of, like the outliers are always the interesting people, right?
Yeah. And that's why I was talking about with this series, as I mentioned, it's just, how do you know somebody, and what are the great things? Like, how do you define what is great? How do you define how is knowing? Because with Steve, I haven't talked to him before today. Like, yeah, we just added each other on social media and things like that. But the kind of thing that has been constant with the different people we've had in this conversation is like, if you know somebody and you have this kind of open conversation with them, chances are if they know somebody else enough that has that kind of relationship, you can kind of pick up and notice that you can talk about things. And just from talking before this and what Steven said here, I can imagine he'll be back on to talk about many other things, many interesting things he mentioned. Like even the simple thing like the reality tunnel thing, something I use a lot and something that he brought up. I was like, oh wow, reality tunnel, he knows about this stuff. A lot of good stuff in there. And so if you liked anything that Steven said here, definitely check out a lot of other stuff we talked about with Steven about the food service industry. His I Know Great People series was actually more in the food service industry. So some of the things he mentioned there as well were things that that Steve has mentioned this time, like with the propensity of, it seems there's something with the food service industry that a lot of drug use, somehow, it might be more like back of the house than the front of the house, but there is an aspect in there, and like something Steve has mentioned. We've mentioned how out of the many businesses that start and close, the restaurant industry is really tough. So it's just really admirable to see the amount of effort you put into it. And this is something that Stephen and I have talked about, especially with Lydia, wondering what's the difference between somebody buying a place that's already open versus what you've done, put in the work. And the more you were invested into actually the business, you first got the truck and you're like, okay, I'm doing this. But that was still at higher level than the person who was just like, oh, I'm just hanging out here for some summer. I'm just going to make some money with these 2 burgers. You started putting more work, and the more you invested into it, the more the ownership you had into it. And I think there's a big problem in the world today. A lot of people are getting their identity by identifying with certain groups or causes or things that they haven't actually invested in. And then once they say, oh, I'm as of this, or I'm part of this group, and then they still feel hollow because you can't lie to yourself. You know you haven't put in the work. You know you don't own that thing. And I'm assuming that your feeling towards that truck was a whole lot different even now that it's not working. Now that you've put in all that time and you have your restaurant, you've gotten to the restaurant, but that truck is still a part because you know the actual work you put into it to actually get to this point. Is that something that you feel is something that speaks to your experience?
On a way deeper level than even what you kind of even allude to. I think it's 100% the truth. Like that leads into a lot of things about the ideas about our society now. It's like everybody wants this quick success story or this quick fix. Or you hear the story a lot with musicians, even like overnight success. But then you do the research and you realize, oh, this guy was playing like dusty bars for like 15 years. And it's like, that's not an overnight success.
Yeah.
That's what you saw. That's what you see in the public eye. So yeah, you're right. You have to own it, man. You have to own whatever the heck you're doing. Like oftentimes the trials and tribulations at a place will build you who you are. You might have worked as a manager somewhere where you're like, that was a terrible experience. Mm-hmm. I just got treated like garbage there and, whatever. But that somehow makes you, war tested. And then it prepares you somehow for the next event. Like being prepped is not being prepared. So you can prep all you want for something. Like I prepped a lot for this business, but I wasn't prepared for what could happen. Like this country was born from a volcano. And it's a similar experience for the person living here. It's not just a smooth experience for any being living here, whether it's the horses fight for food and water and kind of we do too,
Yeah.
But yeah, man, you got to own it. And I think the experience is, you presented this questionnaire and I knew I was going to do this to you, man. I saw your questionnaire. I'm like, we're not going to talk about none of that. Because I felt like the story needed to be told a little bit because our history, Steve and I's history, kind of led me here, in a lot of ways. Like we had all our conversations at Netta were about independent thought and like how we're better than this shit we're doing right here. Like I felt like there was more potential. I felt like they were limiting our potential there because of their ego, They didn't want us being too good. Like Steve, don't run the kitchen too good because the chef's going to get pissed because he's a schlump. You can quote me on that. No, I'm just kidding. He was a terrible leader. But like, if you're a good leader, other people will hold you to, some people hold you to that standard, but other people will hate you for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's you see that in every industry, I'd imagine, but I saw it in restaurants too, where it's like there are people who I guess you could say shine too brightly and they don't like it because they feel like they look not as good by comparison instead of let's all learn from each other and work together to build up as much as we can. And I think Steve and I have that in common. And I think like it's a shame you don't see that, but people's egos get in the way. And it's just, no, I want a mindless drone. Like there's certain bosses I've had, I'm not going to mention names, but like they just want mindless drones that they can control. And it's like, we have no interest in being mindless drones.
Yeah, the outliers, the monkey wrenches, are usually the ones that cause some type of change to happen that's good. Yeah. I felt like we made the restaurant, we gave good energy there, but not sometimes the person that you think is in charge is the worst energy for the place. That's the fun part.
Yeah.
So I battle those demons all the time. Like I'm a new owner, so I'm always having this conversation with myself all the time, being super self-aware of that, of what you're saying, how you're saying it to people, and we just, we knew each other through the restaurant industry, but I don't think we talk much about restaurants in the restaurant business, Steve and I. Mm-hmm. He was usually telling me something completely off topic. Let's talk about sushi. And he's like, let's talk about Marie Rothbard. And 45 minutes. And I'm like, I'm down.
It's always a good time. It's always a good time to talk about Marie. It's always a good time.
Because if you're passionate about something, I'm down to hear you. That's all I care about. Like, you can like everyone would say, "Well, that's boring conversation. Who wants to hear about the economy?" But I'm like, it's interesting, and this guy's passionate. So let's, how many times do we drag somebody into our conversation though? That's the funny part.
Yeah. but they've shown that too though. Like if a person gives a talk on something and they're very passionate into it, you're more likely to listen than someone who just reads off a script that it's like, okay, I've heard this a million times.
You talk about the drug thing before. You asked them like, why is the drugs such a prevalent thing in the restaurant world? And it's like, why is the drugs such a prevalent thing in the stock market world, the finance world? The reason why is it's super, super stressful.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know much about the finance world, but I know it's stressful and they do develop some drug issues. But like, for the restaurant world, it's like, imagine not just dealing with, like, professionally and emotionally dealing with so many people all day. Yeah. You have to, if you look at it in a metaphysical way, you got to go home and cleanse that energy every night. You got to, like, that's why we oftentimes go, like, I need to have a bottle of Chardonnay before I hit the train. Like, just a bottle, just 4.5 glasses. That's all you need to take the edge off. Well, that and a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and next thing you know, you're at this party having a corkscrew conversation that goes like this at like 4 a.m.
Oh yeah,
and somebody's wasted and bringing out like some 1972, bottle of Pinot Noir. You're like, well, I'm not leaving now. And then you start the date again tomorrow at 4. I'll see you tomorrow at 4. You're leaving at 7. It's a real thing. Yeah. Because the job sucks. It's great, but the industry's great. Like, I love it. Like, I always joke around and say, oh, I'm glad I left that industry. But I didn't leave the industry. I just changed my job role, and it's a little bit more of a different thing for me now.
Yeah. Now, I think this would be a good transition to the second question. We'll still work our way through the question. Give it the varsity try here, because I think with some of these we'll be able to pick out some of the details that you're talking about here. Because you talked about definitely these negative things, but this is also very interesting to talk to someone like you. It's also very interesting talking to Steven because he worked his way up in different parts. He hasn't gone to the ownership aspect of it, but you've even had that. So that'll give me some interesting kind of point of view on this. So, what are two to three things that someone would like about what you do? Now, this is also extra interesting because there's things that you did when you were an employee in the restaurant industry. Then now there's things that you did as an owner and in different countries and things like that. So just 2 to 3 things that you think are actually positive, that are selling points. If someone's like, hey, this is something I'd like to do or be good at, that you feel comes from what you did.
That's easy. Real quick for 3 on both sides. The things I think they're the same for both my job as an owner and as an employee, I think. The fun part, you get to meet a lot of interesting people. If you're social in any way, shape, or form, this is a great industry for you. If you like to cook, I think the hustle of the restaurant industry is pretty fun. Like, it can be exciting, something new and challenging every day. Never the same. It's never boring. It's another positive thing. And the third thing I think would be positive would be, it's rewarding for me because I think it's one of the most noble things you can do in any capacity is feed people. So there's that. Yeah. And then the 3 negative things was long hours. Your job never stops, especially as an owner. As an employee, you still have long hours, whether you're in front of the house or back of the house. The second thing would be it's always challenging and always changing. So the positive is also negative for sometimes. You can never bank on tomorrow. You're operating always, even as a restaurant, a very slim margin of success,
Yeah.
So it's a constant battle. And the third thing is it's super stressful. And if you're not an older guy like myself, I'm in my mid-40s, if you're not a little bit seasoned in the game and like, I already missed my chance to be turned into a drug addict. You know what I mean? Like if it hasn't happened already, it's not happening now. Like, I already skimmed past a lot of that stuff and came out unscathed to a certain degree. So I'm not going there again. But I'm saying that I know how to deal with the stress a little bit better now.
Sure.
Because it's so familiar to me. Like the battlefield, even for like a warrior, the battlefield is familiar. For some people, you'd be scared covering your head from the gunshots and like ducking and hiding behind mortar fire and all this other stuff. But like, guy who's a warrior, that's the moment he thrives. That's what he looks forward to. So I kind of like the chaos of service, Yeah. But those are the 3 things I think on both sides. I think I gave you a pretty short answer.
Now,
Yeah, I was just gonna say, Steve, I don't know if you ever saw any of the presentations we did before, but I brought up at one point with Felidia, they were saying how when Felidia opened in the early 80s, the profit margins were 20%. Now today it's like in the city, it's like 1 to 3%. Like if you get 5, you're doing really well. Like I gotta imagine, I don't know how it is for you, but dealing with stuff like that, where it's like you're starting to get it, you have a few bad days, it's like you're screwed. Whereas if you have 20%, okay, you go through a rough patch, you just kind of ride it out, and you have money saved to do that.
I need the way I'm looking at it right now. We're not fully into like the first year of business, and like I said, we're tracking everything with our systems.
Sure.
But the thing what I'm realizing is, I think, if I were to speculate, if you have one great quarter, that pretty much means you had a good year.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like,
yeah,
because like really great restaurants have 2 great quarters.
Yeah.
Really, if you think about it, like we're just breaking down the year quarterly. Like, if I have one good quarter at this point, I'm killing it. If I have one good month, I'm killing it right now. I think if we go positive, after paying everybody, it's $50. We go positive. I'm pretty much celebrating a little bit. That's a good month. At the end of the month, to make a little bit of a profit. And I'm not saying $50, but like, I don't know the exact number, but like, we're pulling in, let's say, 3% profit. I mean, that's pretty incredible after paying everybody.
Well, I know in the city here too, it also depends on the time of the year, because that's what my last boss was saying. Like, if you make money during the holidays, no big deal, because everyone does. But if you can make money like January, February, and in the summer, unless you're on the waterfront, like where we used to work, if you can make money in those times, you're doing great. Because once holidays are there, you're golden. But it's like it's riding out those tougher months. But for your business, I'd imagine it's a bit different because of the weather, and it's like a year-round thing. So,
the caveat, what I just said was like, I'm a new business, so I'm just giving you like kind of like estimated numbers based off of like being a new business. And
sure.
I'm factoring in all the investment money and all the new business growing pains that we're dealing with.
Yep.
So it's a lot different this year. So this year is not going to be next year, certainly. Yeah. And our business, if you look at our charts, our numbers are steadily increasing. So that's a good thing. But the reality is that we're a seasonal business here, but I've been trying to maintain a local business here too. That's why we developed such a over the last year, we developed a lot of local business, which is great. So when the tourism comes back in like a week or two, it's going to be jamming for the next 6 months here, jamming. So I'm not worried. It's just weird to judge the first year by any stretch of anything, because we weren't consistent enough with the truck before to have a gauge of what we're doing. This year is the most consistent year we've had. So it'll be interesting. I think next year we have a conversation again about this to see where I'm at, because I feel we're about to take off a little bit in the right direction, because we really put the work in. I think that's the lesson to be learned. Put the work.
Yeah, we'll pencil you in for definitely come back a year from now. Right now, put it on the calendar.
Yeah.
A year from now, we'll come back to talk about the store. But with the storefront, that's some questions I also have. Like, that's a big transition, because you were working in a mobile place that was semi-mobile. It was mostly mobile, like mostly peaceful rides. It was mostly mobile, like you could move.
It was
around.
a rolls down one hill, can hardly get up.
Okay. So you had that, and that's when you were primarily the owner and also the person in control of the food and the content, marketing, the whole aspect. Now
every guy
upgraded. So can you tell us a few things, even from this early point, that you're seeing a few good things about when you were in the truck by yourself with a small crew, where you were in there, versus an actual storefront now that you're kind of taking more of a managerial, like behind the scenes, not even front of the house, but behind, you're on top of the house, you're above the house kind of type of thing. Can you tell us a few good and bad things?
It was more loose, and I think it was more loose on the truck. And I also, believe it or not, it was more loose. Like, I didn't have to be so professional. I'm not saying I'm super professional right now as far as like the way I dress, or but on the truck, it's almost like a free for all. Like, a lot of times you're trying to get business, so you're playing music loud, you're yelling at people, you're like, "We got burgers over here, we got burgers in Tala. Don't be a sucker, come on over." And like we're catcalling people. It's a lot. I'm serious, catcalling people. When Jeff and I, my brother and I, who Steve knows is a cheeky guy sometimes, how he talks. both of us loudmouths from New Jersey on the truck at the night market, and there's all these people on vacation from all over the world, and everyone's coming up. Where are you from? And what's the story behind the truck? And what do you do? And we're having these conversations, and it's really, I mean, if you just show up at the shop right now, if you went to the restaurant right now, you're not gonna see nothing crazy. Maybe a couple people hanging out, some delivery driver about to take food somewhere. It's not like a doom, 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 you know, on the truck, it's a party in the street, you know, or at the market, it's a party for 3 hours. It's a lot different. Now we're open for 10 hours or 8. Yeah, we're open for 10 hours, and it's a slow burn. We're more professional, much more now, as far as our attitude towards it. On the truck, if I ran out of meat, I'm like, woohoo, we're sold out. I'm going home. You run out of meat now at 3 p.m., you better call the butcher, get the delivery, and get more meat because we're open until 10. So it's a lot different now in that regard.
That happened in restaurants I had to work too, where like if we had like a certain cured meat like speck that had to be sliced and we ran out, the chef would actually send people to Chelsea Market to buy it or something. Yeah, because it's like the standards of the restaurant. You're supposed to have it on hand, so it's you don't get it, you find a way to get it. Yeah,
you're exactly right, and that's the attitude I brought here. I don't care if it's the country, the countryside.
Now, also, I think we're moving on to the next question here. It's something, I guess it's kind of the same. I don't know if I tie this with the thing. Okay, this question is supposed to be, what do you think is something opposite of what you do? Now, but there's a lot of different things that you do. Is running a restaurant, even running a food truck, are there things that are very opposite from running a regular thing? I think you already mentioned a few, but what fields do you think would be
the opposite of mine?
Yeah, so the opposite of what you do, pretty much.
Well, you can with most businesses, you can, or most occupations, you can pretty much. Excuse me for once, I have to grab my charger. You can pretty much parlay something about your business with anything. There's correlations with almost every type of business. You can associate a similar trait or characteristic, right? Mm-hmm. But having said that, I'd say the thing that's most farthest from what I do is people that are working in a corporate environment, like, let's say a pharmaceutical company or a person that works for, like, you work in the hedge fund side of things, but you don't work in the exciting part of hedge fund stuff. You work in like the back cubicle part of hedge fund stuff. Yeah. Those types of jobs, and I'm not cherry picking any one specific group because that's unfair. Because people do what they do, but they're very different than me. The person that sits at the desk and just takes orders all day, like, one of the things about our profession is the ability to think on your feet quite quickly and then move, pivot your thought pattern, multitask, quickly operate. Try not to show your stress on the outside. You know, I've worked in offices briefly here and there, and I've met people in these offices that are like, oh, the boss, Jane, the boss is coming around from counting today. You better put your pencils correctly on the desk. I'm like, I don't give a shit about Jane from accounting. She's a boss. She is not my boss. See why I don't work in these environments? Because I don't take shit like that to be scary to me. Like, ooh, the vice president is coming down today. Well, I don't know this dude. He didn't even introduce himself to me. Why should I be afraid of him? So that doesn't, because I'm an outlier in that mentality, it doesn't make me good for that environment. Like, I've tried to work corporate type jobs, and man, I stand out.
Have you had any experience in, like, I know in more corporate food service industry, corporate kitchens or anything like that? You said what were some of those things that might have, I forget the name of the place you said, like the more upper scale Olive Garden. Was that a more corporate place, or is it like a few places?
When you work for a chain thing, a chain restaurant, you're literally operating. You know, I talked about creating a system in my company, but like it's a system so I can have my freedom to go either expand a restaurant or go on vacation, right? You don't want to have to show up every day and micromanage people. But what the problem is with those corporate restaurants is often that the system becomes too large. So, for instance, I'll give you an example. In the restaurant industry, if they want more Alfredo sauce, I'm just going to go, chef, they need more Alfredo sauce. And that's that. The chef's going to go, one moment, I'll give you more Alfredo sauce. And either he'll tell me to bring it in as this or give it to him for free or whatever.
Yeah.
At this Italian restaurant I worked in that was corporate in Myrtle Beach, a couple summers ago, I went and would say, hey, can I more, say to the chef, first off, there's no talking over the line, really. It's not like a real restaurant. It's like, talk to your manager who's playing expediter, who you know 500 times more than he does. Talk to him first. Excuse me, can you ask the kitchen if they give me more Alfredo sauce? Can you give me more Alfredo sauce? And this guy back there with like a lip ring, and he's like, huh? Can I have more Alfredo sauce? My table needs more Alfredo. Now I'm talking over this guy, so I pissed him off. He's like, I don't know. I don't know if I can give you more. What? Just give me more Alfredo sauce. All right. Where do I bring this up? I don't know. I can't give it to you until you bring it up. All right. Where is it on the computer? I don't know. Can you just give me the fucking, can you give me Alfredo sauce so I can get to my table? This is what I was dealing with in a corporate restaurant. There's so many rules in place that the idiot behind the counter can't even give me Alfredo sauce. I have to go to like 5 people and then ask a manager, like all this nonsense, and it doesn't exist in small mom and pop restaurants.
I was gonna say I went through something similar with this with a kitchen I used to work in, where I was coming to eat with my brother and my mom like the next day, and I was like, oh, I'm coming in to eat tomorrow, chef, and he like made a big deal out of it, like, oh, why didn't you do it through me? You're supposed to do it through me. That's what the employee manual says. And it's like a Monday afternoon or something, and I'm like, it's not like the place is slammed. I'm asking for a table last minute. Like, I'm just asking you to, so I don't know. Oh, wait, here you
go. Sorry about that.
Apologies.
I had to charge my phone. Sorry about that, guys.
No, that's all right. No, so what I was saying, my story was that I reserved a table from me, my mom, and my brother the next day, and my boss made a big deal out of it because it wasn't in the employee manual. I didn't do it how the employee manual said. And listen, it was like a Monday afternoon or something, and I'm like, why is this a big deal? There's like nobody in the restaurant, but he's like, you're supposed to do it this way. This is what the manual says, blah, blah, blah. Next time, do it through me. And it's like, you're just looking to come after me for something. Like, there's no like point to this.
It's bureaucracy at its finest. It's like you have to go to 10 different people to get. If I have to check with a manager to like make a decision at my table, it's like I don't even understand that mentality.
Yeah,
there should be some more flexibility. Yeah. Now, okay. So now next question is misconceptions, because like you just mentioned before, I don't know why I hadn't. I guess it's this kind of thing where you just don't really think about something unless somebody says it. You could mention like, if you walk in the food truck, your hours are going to be very different. It's decided with like the amount of ingredients you have in the truck. It's like 3 hours. So that's a misconception. I guess it was a misconception because I hadn't thought of the hours. But are there certain misconceptions that you've experienced both when you started getting the food truck, because you were working in a restaurant, then you moved there, got the food truck, and also misconceptions about now that you had about actually running a restaurant, or things that might have been holding you back from taking the step to actually having your storefront, that now you realize, I had no idea that it was like this, and I was able to do this a lot earlier, or, oh, this is completely new. You found some of those.
Well, there's two. Well, the first part is with the truck, I would say that it's not as easy as you would think, obviously. But I would dare say running a food truck is harder than running an actual restaurant. All right, that's the simple answer to that one. 100%. It's more, you need more flex, you need more pivot. You're dealing with a whole another set of rules. That's the mobility of the truck.
Yeah.
You have the gas, hope that you don't get into an accident, hope that it starts again, hope this, hope that. Did this leak onto here? Were we having a situation with the truck not in regards to food? There's a lot of that stuff happening. So it's harder than running a restaurant. And on the second part of that is running an actual restaurant is a lot easier than what they say it is. Here's my point. I used to work, maybe I just didn't work with like guys that had their shit together, let's say. And I know I'm going to throw a lot of bucks when I say that, but let's say my old manager at Netta, he made it sound like it was the hardest job since running the United Nations.
Yeah.
He made it sound like he's so overworked and so underpaid. And I realized it was just his perception of it, because I run a small restaurant too. I understand it's not New York City also. But listen, dude, you as a general manager has a set of operations. As an owner, I have a little bit more of that open field. So it's even a little bit more intense for me to bring it all in and make decisions based off of things I know and don't know. But like, I used to joke around with this guy at the old restaurant. I'm like, I can run this restaurant from the CCTV on my laptop in my bedroom. I can get in there with the bong and the cup of coffee and it's some old pizza from the night before, running this restaurant from my bedroom. But it's all about what you can handle as a person, I guess. I thought I was underqualified. I turned out to be a pretty decent owner. I lack in other ways. You know what I mean? I lack in other ways. My other ways I lack like things more like the business side of things. Like my old manager at Netta was great at like the number things. Sometimes he lacked other things, you know?
Yeah.
So it's a little easier than what you think it is. That's my point. It's a little easier if you have good leadership skills. You can run a restaurant. Now, will you run it into the ground because you don't know how to do business? That's a whole nother conversation. But I'm learning those other things, and I have people that I have confidence in that run those things a little bit better than me, those systems. So that's what I use those guys for.
Some questions to that, because right now we've talked about a bit before, and it also came up with the capability versus the ability and things like that, where you might be projecting your higher ability to do this on people who are not quite, they don't have the tools to do this. Like you wouldn't judge me and LeBron James in the same amount to like play basketball, because you understand he has a whole different skill set than I do. But for you personally now, with the journey that you told us, telling us about the story that you went through with all that movement, first of all, having the history in the food service industry, did the manager at Netta have that history working in the food service industry before he was a manager?
It was great. It was great doing it. It gave me it prepared me for it to a certain degree, but what you don't prepare for, like I said, being prepped is not being prepared. Being prepared is like doing your due diligence, right? Because I can be through the business, but that doesn't mean that I had all the tools that I needed to create this operation. And what I've learned is that it's humbled me is that nothing will quickly expose what you don't know than practice. Like doing it in practice. When I started doing this shit, like I was like, oh, I got this. Look at this menu I did. This menu's fire. And then you go and do it in the shop and do it under duress in the shop. That's the best way to do it, to find out. Do this special, let's say, oh, this special is this and that, and I made this sauce and it's a 10-part sauce. Well, do that in operation, have 11 burgers and do this day in and day out and see how much work you want to do to put this one little burger together. You see what I'm saying? There's like a point where you have to decide whether or not it's good for the business, because if this burger takes 20 minutes to make on its own when no one's in the restaurant, how are you going to make 10 of them when you're getting slammed and the new guy's working with you that night? How are you going to do it then? Well, that's when you're exposed. So I thought I had so much shit under control. Like, oh, we're just going to do it like this when we get there. And then you realize, oh, that's not going to work long term.
Yeah.
I wanted to make a fish sandwich. I don't have enough fryers right now. I'm getting new fryers this week. Our fryers. Okay. Right now I have one fryer. Anyways, that's working. But
I talked. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
We're going to do a fish sandwich. And the point was, I couldn't do a fish sandwich long term because my whole restaurant would smell like a fish. And I'm not a fish restaurant. See my point? It's just too small. So you think you know, and then you go into practice, and then you realize if you're any what type of humble and intelligent, you realize, oh, shoot, I don't know what the heck I'm doing most days. That's cool, because most people don't either. Most people I don't feel know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
The guy that owned my old restaurant was a hedge fund guy. What the hell did he know about restauranting? Absolutely nothing. I know more about hedge funding than he knew about restaurants, other than going to eating. So what the hell do I have to lose at this point? He ran that thing for 7 years that he had that restaurant open, and it finally closed. So if he has 7 years of throwing money at a problem and then it closed, well, shoot, I can do it at least for 7 years.
Yeah.
So my comment I was going to make, and I wanted to hear what your thoughts on this were, because we talked about seasonal, my old job, and we talked about some of the reasons why it closed, because it had a Michelin star and the product was good. But one of the issues there was that food cost was so high because the chef was doing what he ideally wanted to do versus what was practical and the best you can. And I was going to say, how have you sort of dealt with that issue as well? Because I've thought about this in my own mind. Like, if I open a place, there's all this stuff I would love to put on a menu, but then you have to realize you can't have 50% food costs. You're going to go out of business. But at the same time, you don't want to just serve rice and beans either, so you have to find some compromise between that. How has that been? Because I know you like a lot of higher end stuff like I do. So how have you dealt with that?
I left because I do it. I keep the restaurant in mind as the only thing that we're trying to keep alive and sustain is the restaurant, because the restaurant feeds me and the restaurant feeds my 2 other employees.
Sure.
So the only thing that I care about, because it's so personal to me, right? Because you heard the story. It's not like I just took over McDonald's, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's so personal to me. Hopefully this will continue to be the ideology behind the business, is that I'm getting a little, all right, so let me get back to what I was saying. You were saying about food costs. Best way to describe it is I used to do whatever before I really had a serious business, but now that I have a serious business, now it's like, I have an idea, I write it down, and then I do the math. I know how much everything costs here. And I'll do the math. And if the math says no, I don't care what I want to do. It's stupid to do it business-wise.
Yeah.
If I can have a lobster burger, I can have a surf and turf burger with lobster on it. Who's going to spend, let's say, I'm going to have to charge probably like $12 to $14 for that burger, USD, right? I'm not in that market here. There's at least 10 guys in this area that want that burger, but 10 guys out of maybe 3 that might see the post, maybe 1 might want to travel out or order Perfect Burger that day. And let's say he forgets because he's busy and tomorrow I ran out of lobster, or that goes, you see what I'm saying? Like, I have to be, I go between a fine line between what they want, what I want, and what's feasible financially, because my food cost does not go above 25%. I'm hovering in the 22 to 23% range most days, and I have very little waste because of all that experience that I've had doing it in practicality here. Here, specifically here. We're in New York City. All you got to do is open up the doors and you get business, especially if it smells like hamburgers outside, right? But we're not New York. We have to put the work in. It's like being in a small town with a big idea. You have to tell everybody, you have to be present in your social media, which we are. And and I don't let what I want to do be paramount to what the restaurant's needs are. Never. Because that's a good way to fail. It's like your stupid ass ego tell you, oh, I want a foie gras burger with black chocolate. Don't we all? But like, I told Jeffrey, my brother, I was like, when he comes to visit, he's coming in 2 weeks with a bunch of friends of mine. I'm having everybody bring some stuff for me.
Cool.
I told Jeff I want him to bring me some truffles in a can. I said, we're shaved truffles one night and one night only at Burger Burger. So you get any burger and for a $25 supplement. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Like, I'm just coming back from the beach. I want your $7 burger, your entry level. That's what most people want. So there's things I want to do, Steve, but I think if we were busier, we can do more crazy stuff. Like I had a roast beef burger. It was like basically a French dip burger with roast beef, hamburger, Swiss cheese, and I did a black garlic horseradish mayonnaise. It was off the hook. And homemade broth for dipping. But that's a lot of work for a burger that I charge $10 or $11 for. You see what I'm saying? And then if I don't sell it, guess who eats it? Me. Or my friends, my employees.
Well, Silas, that was like that oyster for a seasonal during the Valentine's Day menu where it had like 10 things on it. You spend all this time putting it together, and then people eat it in one bite, and you're like, why do you spend all this time prepping all this money on ingredients, and like they barely appreciate it? Like, what's the point?
You have to find your market, and you have to find out what works for your business. Like we can't just give stuff away. You can just like if I was working in the middle of like Minnesota.
Minnesota.
Right? Am I gonna have a lobster roll in Minnesota? in the middle of nowhere where they don't have lobster. And people are just be like, what are you doing? Not because they don't want one. And maybe I'm getting lobster shipped in every day, but it's not going to translate well to their mentality. They're like, we don't eat lobster here. We eat whatever we eat here. Oh, you eat cheese curd here or whatever.
Cheese curds are awesome.
But it's about finding your demographic and not having your. See, most chefs are egotistical as hell.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, well, I want to do this because I'm living out my dream. Like, well, dude, we'll go get your restaurant then.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Don't, like, my friends are coming here in 2 weeks and they want to make a special. My friend, like 4 of them cooked. Like, we're going to make a special. I'm like, as long as you follow my criteria for making the special, you're welcome to do anything you want. Mm-hmm. It has to be, it can't go over a certain price or my cost. That's my only rule. And I have a certain granite, solid level where I don't want to go over. And the only way I will go over it is if it's a great deal. Let's say I get a great deal on shrimp. I might do shrimp fries one day. But if I don't get a great deal on shrimp, why am I going to the store to get some shrimp that's frozen, pre-frozen, and then dealing with the hassle of doing all that other shit that I don't do every day? I'm a burger restaurant. People ask me, do you have vegetarian burgers? I mean, we have vegetarian options, yes. Do you have vegan options? I'm like, what do I look like? I'm just trying to sell burgers. You're asking about, well, do you have, you know how people are, Steve, in the restaurant biz, do you have gluten-free? Yes, we do. And they're like testing me. Do you have peanut-free oil for your fryers? And like, they're going to catch you on something because we don't have everything free. You know, we don't have so we don't cater to all that.
Yeah.
Can't right now.
Who is it? David Chang has that, like, no substitutes, no allergies, whatever you have to have.
One of those guys does,
yeah.
Well, I think it's with the bread. It's like, if I got gluten-free bread, right? You can get, right now, you can get any one of my burgers served over lettuce, and I can make it gluten-free. Okay. Most of my sauces are gluten-free. So I can do it. But if you're asking me specifically about bread, let's say I have 10 gluten-free buns in-house. One or two things are going to happen. I'm going to have to pull them out in a freezer and have a certain amount available, not frozen, to utilize them, in which case, if they don't sell, they go bad. Or I just don't have fresh gluten-free buns. And like sometimes they'll go bad, or like it's so many like little things because I'm not big enough. I'm not selling to a bunch of vegetarians a bunch of gluten-free people all the time. Most people, if they're having a burger, they don't care.
Yeah.
But if you want gluten-free buns, I say, not to sound like a jerk, I'm like, you can bring your own bread and I'll make it on your own bread. Or you can have it on lettuce. Have it like a lettuce, like keto burger or whatever. And sometimes people, they don't even want that. They just want to ask you the question. And when you say no, they want to be like, well, why not? Mm-hmm. And I'll tell them the long answer because it doesn't pay for me to have it right now. I don't have enough gluten-free people that care, nor do I have a big enough operation to spend because it's more expensive.
Yeah.
More expensive for gluten-free bread. Well, and I don't want to have that frozen and then have to pull it out, defrost it for you on the spot. I don't want to do it.
The other thing that was annoying too was the people with the celiac disease. They can't have the fried stuff because if you fry stuff that has gluten in it in the fryer, they can't have any of that oil. So like when people would call and ask, I'll just be like, sorry, we fry stuff with gluten in the fryer. And they're like, the only way you could do it would be if you had the stuff that was fried first in there before anything else with flour was fried. But it's like, we can't promise that because you come in partway in service. They're not going to change out the oil just for you. I mean,
And I'm sorry. But that's what I do say that one of the great things about owning my own business is I can just say no.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. That's a constant analysis that you have to work with. Yeah. Like, we were talking about Rothbard before, and we're thinking of doing a series where we talk about human action, the book, because people don't understand some of these aspects of just like the things, even when you're running a business. From my experience of talking to people and just being a freelance designer, never actually worked in the typical 9-to-5, but people don't understand there's customers everywhere. If you run a business, it's not this the idea of this, the big businessman or the small businessman just pirating on people. It's like, no, if you don't run a business that provides a service outside of the mutated environment of the state where it's working, you'll go out of business. So you're a customer. You have to pay attention to the customers that you're providing for. But you're also somebody who's a customer. The farmers who are providing you with the actual food that you're cooking, you're also in a customer basis to that person. So you might be the one customers are coming to buy the food from you, but you also have to serve. I mean, the farmers farmers have to serve you as a customer. So you're going to your farmers in a different kind of way. So there's all these different connections and things like that
You're
people don't understand
right.
that's in there.
I talk about this all the time. We're called, so I bought the name, I bought it Perfect Burger, right? So I kind of set myself up for like issues, right? Because it's called Perfect Burger. And if it's not perfect, people complain. You call it Perfect Burger. Like I've screwed up. We've sent out products before that were less than perfect, and we've gotten crap for it, you know? So
yeah,
I say one of the biggest problems with most restaurants is listening to your, because it's not even real, but like listening to your customer. You think you're listening to your customer, and that can be a bad thing because the customer is not always right. And then the second part of that is trying to appeal to too many fan bases. Trying to be a vegan, vegetarian, gluten-free burger restaurant doesn't fit my business model. It might fit yours, but it doesn't fit mine. So I have to be cautious and protect that part of my brand. So there's that also, because if I start listening to everybody, let's say, and I'll make anything you want, right? But let's say, here's a common thing that I worry about. People manipulating my burgers too much. And then let's say you said, I want something weird on the burger. I need you to put, let's say I need you to put a bunch of jalapenos on my burger. And I'm like, you're not even going to taste the burger. It's too spicy. Why don't you want to do that? And they go, but I like spice. And they convince you to somehow listen to these fools that don't run your shit. They don't run your business. But you're going to listen to them because they're the customer. Customer's always right. All right, I'll do it. And you pile on the jalapenos. They go on social media, they post it, they take pictures of them eating it, and then they go on Yelp and go, this guy made me a burger and it was too spicy. He's not going to put into the conversation that you told him not to do it.
Yeah.
Or you had reservations against selling it to him like that. My point is when they manipulate your product and then that's your name on it. I'm signing every burger Steve K at the end, you know. Technically, that's my brand.
Yeah.
I have to protect it. I can't just let them do everything. I can't just let them go. We used to have a create your own burger feature on our last menu when we were at the golf course briefly. And it was the dumbest thing ever. Like, no, we're not doing it. It's like, we offer it. If you come in, you're like, listen, I just want cheese, pickles, and bun and burger. I'm like, I got you, dude. Yeah. No problem. No problems. But I'm not going to advertise it, nor am I going to say to people that's my model. That's my business model. No way. Don't know better than me. Yeah. I figured it out. I've cooked over 10,000 burgers professionally, conservatively. Wow. And I'm like, you don't know better than me. Sorry. You know what you like, and that's fair. But my burgers aren't perfect burger for me. They're, for instance, like my recipe may not be your style, but they're perfect in regards to what they are in that style. So good proportions. I know subjective, taste is subjective, right? But it's good proportions, not too over this, not too over spicy, not too over garlicky. Everything's balanced. Took a lot of the aspects of fine dining and put it into my food. And that's that. There's not, and it's not perfect in every shape and form. It's just a good quality representation of that style of burger.
Yeah. That's my we have an entire conversation in the Dish and Dish series where we just talk about burgers, and like in that one we also just wondering like what makes a burger, and we saw the different kind of varied types in there. And I think when you are making something, there is an aspect of is cooking. So many people can cook, okay, not that many people. Most people can't. Many people can cook, but few people are actually like culinary artists where if you ask them why they did this, they can understand it. And I'm kind of on the border of that because I can cook pretty well, but then I'm not at the point where I can really understand why this was put into this at this kind of amount. And that's why I like doing the Dish and Dish series with Steven, because he goes into a lot more in-depth things that I didn't really realize and think of. Like if I try making it in the kitchen, just play around, sometimes something will work. And after I've done it enough times, I'll learn it. But Stephen and I'm sure someone like you from having that experience, you know ahead of time you're adding this in order to attain a certain kind of thing. And if somebody takes something out, you just get something else. That's the kind of thing I wonder, like, why don't you just order something else instead of like changing so much of what
or if you just want plain chicken, fair. Stay home and eat plain ass chicken. Yeah. Don't go to per se and spending $60 on grass-fed, farm chickens from Griggs Farm in Griggstown Farm in Jersey, whatever. And these guys go, I want the chicken, but I want to sell it. I don't want the celery puree. Can I have mashed potatoes? Sure. Can I also put the sauce on the side? Like, yes, you can. And I don't like beets. Do you have carrots? Sure. Can you put all a little salt on them? What the hell are you here for? Just so you have Thomas Keller cook your meal? Go home and eat plain ass chicken with carrots. Stop spending $60 on chicken just because you want to tell your friends you're eating that per se. Nobody cares, especially not me. Especially
Keller,
I eat those places all the time.
Keller himself made the analogy of like it's like going to a Broadway show. The restaurateur, the chef, they take you through their experience. You're not saying this is how I want the show to go, because at that point you write your own story and make your own play or something. Yeah, like,
you're not standing up in the middle of like Les Miserables and be like, no, not that way. No. Well, that's the thing is people. Here's the thing. People eat. Everybody eats, and everybody to a certain degree cooks, right? Yeah. So everyone thinks because they eat and they cook, it's like, well, I have a right to tell you how I would do it. Yeah. You rarely catch someone going up to a plumber going, if I had that wrench in my hands, this is how I would do it. Because a plumber would turn around and whack you with the wrench and tell you, fix your own damn toilet. Yeah. But in the restaurant industry, we're expected to say, well, my mom doesn't make it like that, so therefore you must make it like my mom. Yeah. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And the reason why most restaurants fail is because there's this pandering to the crowd that will cause you to lose vision of what your original vision is, and that's when you often find restaurants going under.
That's a good point, because I'm also thinking now, like in certain other fields where people are very critical of professionals, it's like sports, because most people, we played basketball, so we think, we watch people playing basketball, like, you shouldn't do it that way. You should have made the shot. You should have caught the ball and things like that. And like, no, you played a video game, you played Madden. Doesn't mean you know what it is to be a professional football player. Like, don't go and then give him that kind of critique. Yeah, that's a good point you made there.
You play any type of, all right, so I don't play basketball. I'm a tall guy and I don't play basketball. So there's that prerequisite I need to tell. But I was just giving an example of the pro level versus the Joe level. I years and years ago, when I was still more active and athletic, I knew this guy his name was Joel Salvi. I can say his name. He went on to play like AAA, I don't know what they call it, like AAA basketball in Europe. He was fantastic. Played for Rutgers. Guy when the Rutgers was actually decent for a year or two. This is back in the late 90s. Really good basketball player, about 6'7". I'm 6'4". He's like 6'7", 6'8". And this guy was so good, couldn't go pro though, because for various reasons. But I played against him on a pickup game, and it was like he could have jumped over my head if he wanted to. It was it was like an X-Men character. It didn't make any sense. I felt like I was moving in slow motion next to him. So that's not even a LeBron James. So that's not even super pro. And even at that level, again, it exposes what you don't know about something. Yeah. And why are we listening to people at their table anyways? Like, listen, if you say, I don't like your food, I'm going to say, that's terrible. What can I offer you in return that will make that you'll like, right? That's where I say the customer is right. If you don't like it, I'll adjust. Yeah. But if a person comes to my restaurant and says, hey, I think your barbecue sauce sucks, and I think you should put a mango pineapple sauce on there instead, I'm like, what are you doing? You would never say this to your accountant. You would never say this to your car dealer. I mean, in so many ways, like in our society, we pander to certain professions. Yeah. But you come into the restaurant and you're trying to tell the chef and everybody else what to do and how to do it. You're crazy. Yeah. Stop doing it, people. Don't do it. You're not going to go up to the police officer and tell him how to do his job, nor are you going up to your medical professional. We put those guys on a pedestal this year. You're not going up to the doctor and telling them what you think. So stop telling them what the poor chef how to cook your damn chicken.
Yeah, we are seeing that actually, as you mentioned, that we are seeing the effect of people trying to say the healthcare officials will do this, or are you an expert? And then the supposed experts that decide to do something they don't like, and all of a sudden they don't talk about it, or defund the police. We need like social workers, and they defund the crime rate goes up. Like, what's going on? It's like, yeah, maybe you don't know what's going on. So kind of just know your role and know your lane. Know your
expert, not this guy, you know. Yeah. And the funny thing is, the people that are the coolest to operate with, I'm sure Steve can agree too, the people that are the coolest to operate with in that environment, like I get a lot of restaurant owners coming to my restaurant, like from the ones in town. And they're from all over the world, Argentina, Italy, Canada, US, Costa Rica. It's great. They all love my place. That's how I know there's something right, because they got the least amount of anything to say about it. If anything, just encouraging words. And usually the chef that comes out to eat are the most easiest people to wait on. They're the easiest ones to deal with because they're like, give me anything. Or if they say, give me anything, but I'm allergic to peanuts. And you're like, all right, fine, no peanuts for chef, but like, please go to everything else. Those are people you want to help. Or the people are like, you know, we ran out of this. You want to substitute that? Yeah, no problem. But the people that come in and they're like, oh, I like it this way. You have to have this, and you have to have tamari, you have to have gluten-free this, and just go to that restaurant. There's so many niche restaurants now. Just go there. Stop coming to my restaurant. Because I can't be vegan. I can't ethically cook vegan food and in my restaurant because it's too small to make anything vegan. Sorry. Just can't do it.
Yeah.
Unless it never touches the grill or unless it doesn't touch anything else. I won't serve it. What's the point?
Yeah.
Even my friend.
I think this is a good point to switch to the next question about learning. Now, like, because, okay, the customer's always right. I've learned that from an earlier point, from being a customer mostly and being completely wrong about a lot of things. So I never really bought that much. But now you've actually worked in different places. So this next question is about like learning, like the things that you learned in order to actually do the things that you're doing, both with the food truck, because you started that with just working. That was your first time moving to a brand new country, which we can do an entire conversation on just that aspect of it, the legalities. But I'm interested to try to understand, when you did the food truck first, could you imagine having had started a regular restaurant first and then gone into the food truck business? Do you think you'd have been more capable to take on the food truck things? Or
it may have worked. Well, I thought about that. Yeah. I thought about that before. It may have worked. I'm not saying it couldn't have worked, but I'll say this. The truck definitely threw me through the gauntlet to where I felt like, because of that, like we talked about earlier, because of that experience, like I felt fearless going into this comfortable situation. Because even though it was uncomfortable for me in some ways, the comfort of just showing up to the restaurant and having that stability, I'm not worrying if it's going to start or if this thing's going to go wrong. And things still go wrong and things still happen. But the truck was so uncertain on so many levels.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, if you can go through that, if you've ever worked for a failing restaurant, ever, in any capacity, not even general manager, if you just worked for one, you will have a wealth more experience than working for one that is just successful. Like people that worked at restaurants that were only been successful, they work at a failing restaurant and they don't know what to do. But backwards is not true. If you worked at a failing restaurant and you work at a great restaurant, not only do you appreciate it more, but you're like, oh, this is great. We have more than 8 coffee cups for service. It's awesome. I've been in a lot of places like that. Jeez.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the things Stephen and I also are very interested in, is like education and learning and things like that. And we've talked about this, the food service industry, restaurant industry, and how things are changing. Now people are moving around a lot more post-pandemic and things like that. We're trying to think of what other kind of ways of training could there. And I think, what are your thoughts on training of some kind of system?
The training part that I got is, tolerance for people, being more tolerable of everybody, because trust me, you'll meet the dregs of society in the restaurant business. You'll meet some really great people, but you'll meet some people that you're happy you're not friends with in real life that you still have to
I can agree.
And so you learn tolerance for people, but you also, I think the positive thing is to draw from that is you learn how to be compassionate in a different way. You do tolerate a lot more on a superficial level. You understand people a lot more. You definitely understand human society on a whole a lot more because you deal with some interactions between people. That's great. That's one of the most fantastic things. You become a social behavioral scientist being a waiter. It's a social experiment. You watch people eat, and eating is one of the most primal and personal and intimate things you possibly can do.
Yeah.
Watch someone eating who doesn't realize they're being watched, and watch how they eat. And sometimes it's gross, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like watching somebody have sex. It's almost to that level of intimacy. And you're going out and you're putting these people that are eating intimate in a situation. Sometimes it's a business meeting where they're playing a certain role and they act a certain way. And you don't understand that. Like they're playing a character. And then you watch them with their family, the same guy playing a different character. But you as a waiter are required to play or pander to both of those characters. So when you see Mr. Johnson with his family, he's like this gregarious guy who does this to you and gives you $20 bill when he's leaving. And he's like a nice guy when he's with his family. When you see him at his business meeting, he's not that same guy. And you try to buddy with him, and he's like, oh, who's this guy? I don't even know you.
Yeah.
He plays a different role. And you're expected as a waiter to deal with that, man. If you can deal with that, and I felt like me personally, I was a master at that type of stuff. I was good with Steve will tell you with most of my tables.
Yeah,
but that's awesome. And then the other second part of that was being able to multitask, just being able to think about more things than just what you need, what's right in front of you, and being able to meander through those tasks. Something that the restaurant industry taught me. So
yeah, there's probably a lot of just things that are very hard to teach, because I'm wondering, what if there was some kind of system where to teach people to run restaurants or even to work in restaurants, instead of going to your typical culinary institute, even if it's including the culinary institute, have an aspect where it's like for 6 months or for like a year, you run a food truck of your own with like a small team and get some more input on that. Then after that, if you want to go and work in the back of a restaurant or open your own place or something like that, that could be something towards that kind of thing.
I would recommend I wouldn't recommend that food truck as somebody's first thing to do at any point. If you've never, even if you worked in the restaurant industry, safely speaking, for most people, like I'm a bit of a lunatic. For people, I would say, I'll give you an example. It's with restaurant in Jersey City, great burger restaurant. I'll give them a plug. Left Bank Burgers, they're great. Some friends of mine ran the place and owned it. I don't know who's owning it. What's the deal with it now? I know it's still open, but I think it's kind of changed manager roles at the restaurant, but still a great burger restaurant. They were in business as a successful burger business in Jersey City for like 7 or 8 years before they even thought of creating a food truck. Okay. That just shows you how they think. Like I think that's the more sober mentality than what I did.
Yeah.
I was thinking of what someone said on YouTube recently. They were saying that's sort of the dark side of the era we live in, especially with the internet, where anyone who gets an LLC, they're a business owner right away. Whereas in the past, it was like you had to go out, work for someone, become proficient or a master, and then you wouldn't open your own place. But now there are people who are like, oh, I can get an LLC, sell things online. I'm a business owner. And it's like they don't realize all the stuff. They don't know, like, until, like you said, they actually jump into it and they have to start figuring this stuff out as things go.
There's naturals in every form of business, I think. There's people that are good at certain things. But like you talked about, Silas, you said something about not being able to train something. You ever meet somebody who's like, you ever meet a famous person? Right?
Yeah.
We've met several.
They have a star quality. Can you put your finger on star quality? Can you put your finger on why this person, people gravitate towards them? You ever wonder about that? Or have you ever wondered you ever meet somebody who seems like everybody just wants to give them money? Yeah. You ever meet that person? Like you don't know why? Well, there's a certain intangible quality you must have in order to work in the restaurant industry. Because we've worked in restaurants, Steve and I, with people. We could probably, if we really thought about it, name those people that were like autonomous, and they don't operate well. They take orders. They can bring the food to them, but problem solving at the table eludes them. Like certain things that I would have no problems with, like, oh, this table, the wine was bad. I was like, I made a kind apology and I brought them what they wanted. You know, that's something so easy for me to deal with. And some people like, I'm flipping out. I don't know what to do. The cork's stuck here. And they're like, dude, you're in the wrong business. Go back to whatever you were doing before you came here. But then some people never had restaurant business experience and came into the restaurant industry and gravitated and kicked butt doing it and were able to deal with people. We've dealt with both, I'm sure, in this business. But I can't tell you what it is. It's a mixture of tolerance and social aptitude and problem solving and patterns, being able to see patterns. Like Kirshner sent me, I'm going to brag about this a little bit. He sent me a few IQ tests to take a few years ago. I don't know if you remember this, but you questioned me because I scored unusually high on one of them. And he's like sending me stuff from like Stanford and, like Caltech. And I'm like doing all this. I haven't taken an SAT or IQ test in 25, 30 years. Yeah. So he sent it to me and I scored unusually high. You sent me 5 and I averaged them out and they were all a little bit above like 130, 140 something. And I'm not bragging because I don't think IQ amounts to much of anything sometimes. But what I was saying about that, we talked about why we thought I scored unusually high because I'm not very good in like long form math. But I think the thing was I'm good at recognizing patterns. And if you work in the restaurant industry, it makes sense why I'm good why I was good at that too, was because I'm good at recognizing patterns quickly. But that doesn't mean I'm good at like abstract math or other things that IQ test. I often guess sometimes, you know, but the patterns ones come a little easier to me. But I often, again, we talked about this. I don't think that's the benchmark for intelligence, but
as we talked about, there's a difference with like capability and ability. Like I think like I look at IQ more like horsepower, where it's like, yeah, you can have a car that's like 250 horsepower, but will you ever actually use the 250? When for most things cars need to do is like 100 horsepower. So it's rather better you have an engine that works well, that's taken care of, because there's people with 250 horsepower who never took care of the engine, and that engine won't even be able to actually achieve even 50 horsepower.
Or not knowing how to drive
so,
it.
Yeah, so there's so much more that goes into
Lambo, not know how to drive it, and you're not going to go anywhere. You're going to stall out.
Well, one analogy.
You were just mad. I was saying Steve was just a little upset. He's like, "How do you do that?" He was like, "Take this one. Take this test again. I don't believe you. Take this in front of me." I think I took one at Netta because you didn't believe you thought I was studying for it or something. I was just laughing all the time. I'm like, I was literally doing A, B, B, C, A, B. No, I'm just kidding. I was thinking, if I told you 100%, I guess on everything, you jump off the freaking Brooklyn Bridge tonight.
Well, one analogy I heard for the IQ thing is it also depends on like what kind of work you're doing. Like if you want to become like a physicist, I think you need like probably minimum 130. But like the analogy somebody made is if you want to be an NFL lineman, you probably have to be minimum a certain size. Because I think they studied this and they said the biggest linemen actually don't get the most tackles because the guys that may be a bit smaller but have better technique, those are the ones who are the most successful. But at the same time, you have to be of a certain size to get the job. Like you can't be my size and be an NFL lineman. You're going to get killed. It's like, you have to be minimum like 300 something pounds and like so tall.
Yeah, Elon Musk may be able to run a tech company, and he also might be able to run a restaurant. But Stephen Hawking, being a genius guy, he's not going to be able to run a restaurant. You put that dude in that, he wouldn't know the first thing about running a restaurant. But he can explain to you Big Bang theory. There's
also an extra
different parts, different types of intelligence for sure.
Yeah.
There's also an extra part of this where, again, we even have a separate conversation about this, is the whole going to an entirely different country and doing that. And there is something that I think is, people look and say, especially in places like United States, America, and Europe, talk about the immigration. They say, oh, look, these people are coming here and they're sending the best. These are doctors. And I'm like, not quite. You might personally know a few people who are more entrepreneurial, but that's because those people would have been entrepreneurial in the country that they're in. But there was probably some limitations there that they decided, let me come here and try that. So don't take that as an average person, because the average American wouldn't be able to just go to Costa Rica and do what you've done. There's something about your mentality, about your history, that makes you want to drive. The average American might come with an idea, try the first time, and then leave after it doesn't work and go back to America and just get a job. You came back and forth, back and forth. You had the support structure. You had the supportive girlfriend and wife. You had a brother that was in there. You met people. You pushed out enough to say yes, because people don't really understand how tough it is to move to another country. You might be able to get there as an American with your passport, but once you get there, the United States of America does
the whole different rule set.
Yeah, the United States does way more to accept and integrate people coming from other countries than other countries do. Like the systems in other countries, for you to move there, you have to adjust majority to the way they live there. They don't adjust for you, whereas America is like jumping through hoops to try and welcome you into the whole pot. And people are like, no, we want to just be in our own space. So that aspect, like, what was your learning process of understanding? Was this the first time that you like lived somewhere else outside of America?
No, I was in the Navy, and I lived in Japan. I was stationed in Japan, but I had been to like 10, 11 countries by the time I was 23, mostly in Asia. Like I was off the coast of Somalia, but I wouldn't claim I went to Somalia. I was off the coast about 1.5 miles. I saw land, but I spent some time there. I went to Thailand, I went to Korea, South Korea, Singapore, Philippines, Okinawa, places like that. Russia, I went to Russia once, went to Vladivostok in Siberia. That was pretty cool. But so I had a lot of world experience. My wife lived in Japan for 6 years in the 90s. She was there. I didn't know her then, but she was there when I was there too. But she was in Tokyo, and I spent time in southern Japan. So I had that under my belt. But coming here, I'd never been to Costa Rica. So I bought the truck through a lawyer, but only seeing pictures online through a contract, so that if it wasn't what I expected, the contract wasn't going to be able to be withheld, held up. Yeah. So that was my only safety net. And then other than paying only half in advance. So we wired the money and all that stuff through the lawyer, and it was pretty legit, but it was still a little shaky because I had never been to Costa Rica, and neither was my wife. We were literally coming in blind.
That's tough, man. That's really admirable. You guys have done that. Now you're
like 6 months of research. My wife was amazing research for like 6 months, and we knew everything we could as far as being part of like Facebook groups about the area and researching geographic things and all this stuff like that, but never touched ground until we touched ground. And when I first moved here, I was like, what did I do? So I came here during a hurricane. Like pretty much Nate came out like less than a month after I got here. I came in wet season in August, the beginning of wet season. So I came here, I was like, dude, there's water everywhere. Oh man, what did I do? Where do we live? We live in the jungle. Well, it's really not like that. It's just your first perception, It's a lot to take in when you first come to anywhere, Like I just showed up in I don't know, Dubai, you're just like, oh, you would have this, you only spent a layover, let's say in Dubai or something. You would have a perception about it through the airport. You wouldn't know what the hell Dubai was like. So I was only on the ground for a couple of days, and I'm like, oh, we live in a jungle. It looks like I live in a jungle, but my neighbors are right there, and I got neighbors right there. I got neighbors right over this hill. There's neighbors everywhere, densely populated. It's kind of like, it's like small town, any small town in New Jersey, you can kind of get the drift. It seems small, it seems secluded, like South Brunswick, but it's loaded with people. There's like 70,000 people in South Brunswick, 80,000 people,
I think New Jersey is the most densely populated state, actually.
Yeah. We're not. We're actually, Guanacaste, where I live, is one of the least populated in all Costa Rica. There's only like 8 million people in Costa Rica. Most of them are in the city. There's like 3.5 million people in the greater San Jose area, and the rest of the 5 million live in the rest of the state. I'm sorry, the rest of the country. And our whole country is only as big as it's like from Stamford, Connecticut, down to Washington D.C. as far as the length, and the width is only, let's say, like Philadelphia to like New York in width. It's only like 4 miles wide.
We'll show some images on the screen, but the location wise, it's one of those countries that's almost essentially an island, but it's on land.
It's the land bridge between North and South America. That's exactly
it's a little squiggly part that's in there. Yeah,
it's the land bridge.
Yeah, that's the thing. There's
lots of things.
We'll definitely have you back on, because this is something that a lot more questions.
If you came, like you said, you were born in Kenya, correct?
I was born in France.
In France? Well, yeah. So going from any country to any country is like it's a thing, dude. It's not. It's a
learning curve. The learning curve is massive. Yeah,
I had gotten married. I moved here August 28th. I got married on August 5th of that same year. I bought the business like a month before, and I moved here on that same month. So I got a new marriage with stepchildren added, new business, new country. And I'm like, if this didn't kill me, I don't know what's coming.
It's like a honeymoon of sorts. The honeymoon is jump into this brand new business in a brand new country.
Yeah, it was a lot of curveballs, a lot of learning curve too.
That's tough. Yeah, but here you are though.
It prepares you. What's the saying? The 8th reveals the 9th. You got to do it before you know what's happening. Before you know what you're prepared to do next, you have to do it.
The thing previous to it, I guess. Yeah.
Have you ever been through a step? Anytime you had anytime you had a part of your life that tested you beyond your limits, somehow you come out of it and more. You're better off. You're more comfortable. You're more sane and sober than you did when you thought you were crazy. Because at some point I was losing it, everything. But it's all part of the storm. You got to weather the storm.
Yeah. All right. Now we're going to transition to the most important question of this entire thing. which, as I keep telling people, this is just a scheme for me to ask people this question. It's, do you like cheese? And if yes, which ones? And if no, why are you a horrible person?
They're like, what?
What do you like cheese?
I love
and
cheese.
If yes, tell us which ones. Tell us. Let's talk about cheese. Tell us the cheeses that you like and
my favorite
what you like about
cheese
them.
is. I'll name a couple. I love Anton.
Yeah, talk as many as you want.
Steve's gonna help me. Steve's gonna help me with my French. What's the cheese from France called? The one that smells like dirty socks. It's a.
That's several of them.
No, Epinois. The one that comes in looks like a thick brie, but it's like
Dauphinois. I think you're thinking of.
Yeah,
it's D''AFFINOIS. Dauphinois.
No, it's just an E. Epinois, I think it's called.
Epinois. I'm not sure. Maybe I've seen it. I have to think.
The really smelly. I'll send you the link.
Yeah,
you can.
Yeah, we look it up.
It's expensive.
Okay.
It's like $30.
Wow. Wow.
But it smells like feet and tastes like lilacs flowers. I had it with some nice homemade crackers I bought from like Brooklyn Fair, and I got some Pajero fig jam. It was beautiful. I also like sharp cheddar. I love sharp cheddar from like England and Ireland. Those rich styles. Parmesan Reggiano is one of my favorite cheeses in the world.
Yep.
I like good aged Parm, like 30 years, beautiful.
Yeah.
I like fresh cheese. I like old cheese. I like new cheese. I like. I have a bunch in my fridge right now. I have Gruyere in my fridge. I have raclette, I think. I have some American, because nothing melts like American cheese, believe it or not, even though it's garbage. I love American cheese on like for grilled cheese. It's great. I love Gruyere. It's expensive here. I started using cheese from a local purveyor. So I was buying cheese from the supermarket and overpaying. And I met this guy. I heard of this guy who owned a small Mexican restaurant chain here, like a local chain. It's very successful. During pandemic, he got a little bit of a hit, and he had bought a farm for his cheese production a few years ago that he was using just for his restaurants. After pandemic kind of hit the restaurant industry a little bit, he decided to make his farm wholesale. So he started selling to like supermarkets and restaurants his cheeses that he was making on his farm. He's got a cheesemaker on the farm that trained in France. So we get all our cheese from a local farm in Turrialba, which is about, it's about 2 hours away, 3 hours away from here, from the middle cheese farm area here. And we get some of the best quality artisanal local cheese.
Great.
Really high quality. We got a mild cheddar we use on our burgers. We got what the hell is it called? I'm losing the name of the French cheese. It's Swiss, but it's not Emmental. It's
not Gruyere. You mentioned Gruyere already. Those are like the famous ones.
No, it's on my menu. It'll come to me in a second.
Is Fontaine even Swiss? That's not.
But it's dude. The cheese is high quality. The mozzarella is good. Everything's good, and but it's if you want the real stuff from Italy, it's a little bit more expensive here. It's like 40% more because of import tax.
I'm sure. Yeah.
But I do a cheese at least once a month. Like if you come to visit here, the rule is if you come to visit here and you come to my house, you will have charcuterie.
Great.
100%. You will have cheese and meats.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw my recent profile pic I took with Costa Rica. I have a cheese plate and a charcuterie plate, and I'm holding one.
I love it. It's my language.
Now, are there any local cheeses?
The ones here, the ones I'm getting are actually local cheeses. But
is the cheese technique they're making, is it foreign type of cheese, but they're making it locally? But I was wondering, are there any actually locally developed cheeses? Is it part of the cuisine where cheese was part of the things? Cows.
No, they make cows style cheese. One of the most popular styles is a sauce farm style cheese that's not aged. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like I'm sure you've had the Mexican cheese.
Queso fresco.
Queso fresco, very popular.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's due to the temperature and access and all this other stuff to things. but they have cows here, they have milk here, and they have butter here, and they have all this other stuff, and it's an artisanal movement. So what they were trying to do, I think what this guy did was what's the stuff they used to make cheese? The
culture and stuff?
Yeah, the cultures. They're bringing these things here from other places.
Yeah.
So we have I forgot what cheese factory here is, not my guys, but there's another cheese maker here that has got some actual blue cheese mold strains from France, and he's doing like legit stuff here.
Wow.
Cool.
But it's like, it's slowly happening. The world is becoming more global.
Yeah.
People in San Jose, for instance, the city folk, not to say they try to act like Americans, but they're like anemones of the Western world. You know, they don't want to be like, we don't want to be more like Venezuela. We want to be more like the US or Canada. You know, if you're looking at who you want to be like, right? We're not trying to act like more like country. We don't want to be like Patagonia. We got, you know, the cows blocking the street. We're like, we're trying. The local population is craving more of that.
Yeah.
Ooh, what's that? Because I went to Miami and I tried this cheese there, and we can't find it in Costa Rica. So this person that traveled to Miami twice is now telling the local farmers market or whatever to, hey, can you get this? Can you get this? Because I had it in the U.S. and it was amazing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think a Starbucks is popping up anytime soon here, like where I live. Like, we have them in the city here, but not here because we have so many local coffee grinders here.
Yeah.
Starbucks, McDonald's is not popping up anytime soon here where I live. 1 hour away, we have McDonald's. Thank God there's not a McDonald's down the road from me.
Yeah.
Not saying that people would choose that over me, but it's more accessible than I am.
Yeah.
It's certainly cheaper. Certainly cheaper.
There's an aspect of that where you kind of wonder, because like now with the cultures, they might be able to find some equivalents of cultures that haven't been discovered in Costa Rica that could do a similar thing to whatever the Rockefeller molds do. But sometimes once something already has a market, people think we'll ship this in instead of finding our own local ones. Because when we had the wine conversation, we were talking about how there's like, is it terroir? I'm probably using the term completely wrong.
Yeah.
But there's actual things about the soil. The animals eat certain things. So there's certain things that haven't been discovered in certain places that I'm looking forward to. We haven't made all the sorts of cheeses that human being that the planet Earth can make.
Oh, man, we got it. I want to say something interesting about the cows really fast. You'll find this interesting. The cows here are from India. They're the ones with a lot of them are the ones with the humps on their back.
Yeah.
Cool.
We do have some Angus and Wagyu crossbred cows here in some parts of Liberia. They're actually doing really nice dry aged meats up there, but it's in the mountains. A lot cooler up there for the cows because they have like a fur. Where these cows here, they're more built here for hot weather and low water. And in fact, our grass that we use is from the African grass from the savannah. It's a deep root grass and a little bit more harsh on your feet because it survives in the long dry months we have here, and it thrives. So that's two interesting aspects about our terrain here. But with cheese, you know, it's still new. Like these artisanal cheeses is a new concept here. But I still get what I want. There's an Italian cheese market here called Walters, and they're fantastic. And you pay a little bit more, but they make homemade mozzarella. They import Brezola, and they import 30-year Parm, and they just freeze it and store it well in their fridge. And Parmesan, if you store it right, will last forever. Yeah, you know, things like that. But,
do you have any water buffaloes for the buffalo mozzarella, or is it just from cow milk?
We get buffalo mozzarella imported. Like I forget the name of the company. We get a lot of Italian products here because, we have a lot of Italian people from Italy, and we also have a lot of Argentinians who have a strong Italian influence due to the amount of Italians in their country. So we have a lot of products that are direct from Italy here, shipped direct.
Italians travel a lot. Well, from my experience, Italians travel a whole lot. Maybe it's because there's so much coast, so they're just so used to just jumping on boats and going to other places.
A lot of Italians, they travel a lot. They're very bohemian in style. Like they're all like very free spirits, a lot of them. So it doesn't surprise me when I see an Italian person traveling. I'm like, of course you travel. You're a free spirit. Because Italy's full of old people. There's no young people in Italy.
That was my experience from living there. It's a whole bunch of old people and very few kids. And if you're living in a coastal place, chances there's an Italian community somewhere.
My bun maker's Italian. He's from Rome.
Yeah.
originally, but he's world traveled. He's world traveled, and he spent some time in the army. He's world traveled. He's married to a Costa Rican lady. So it's like, yeah, they're very. I would classify them as bohemian. Yeah, a little in a way. Like this other guy that owns a hotel here. Like, he's just a very eccentric person. Like he's into skateboarding and not very traditional by any stretch of the word. Tattoos everywhere and very free spirit. He owns a hotel in the middle of the jungle, and he's from like Milan. This guy was probably wearing $600 shoes like 5 years ago in Milan, and now he doesn't wear any shoes or.
So our mutual friend Andrea, actually, she's from her family's from Argentina, but she's Italian descent. If you notice that necklace she's always wearing in all those photos, that's actually the Argentinian national stone. So I guess her family came over probably like after World War II. I know a lot of them went down there then, but she speaks fluent Spanish as well. She speaks Italian pretty well too, but not perfectly, she said.
I was going to make a comment about that symbol, but I wasn't going to make it because you said something about World War II. And I'm like, whatever you do not ask Argentinian why their grandparents are German. Don't more subject. I make a joke. I make jokes to my friend all the time. He's Argentinian, and I make comments all the time about that stuff because it's funny. It's funny. I don't make it publicly, but those comments are pretty funny about that whole thing because we all know, like, nod. All right, don't worry about it. We're not going to talk about NASA, how we stole all their best scientists, but that's the truth.
we all know where they hail from.
Wernher von Braun's father of modern rocket science. Your theory is one of their best. But the Italians are everywhere, and thank God for that because I don't think as a New Jersey guy, how can I survive without mozzarella and some of our Italian? I also like Fontaine. I think Fontaine is one of the best cheeses.
Sure.
Really good melty cheese and a good alternative to crappy American cheese that's processed. If you want to make a good grilled cheese, just use straight up Fontina.
Yeah.
Oh, it's heaven.
Okay, now, you said you mentioned some on your menu, which I was going to ask. You talked about that. Of course, you can add stuff to it, but how many of the 11 burgers on your menu have cheese on them as default? Like, could you consider cheese to be one of the default things for burgers? Because I think maybe Americans probably think it is.
The only burger that doesn't have cheese is the Japanese pickle burger.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It has pickles, homemade ranch dressing, and a soy glaze. And that's it. And it's fantastic. It doesn't need not one speck of cheese. It doesn't need. Yeah. And I love cheese in my burgers. Also, another burger that doesn't need cheese, but I don't have it on my menu currently, but I ran it before, was like a steak burger with like grilled onions. Sometimes you don't need cheese on that either. Just like some like nice gravy or a steak sauce. Like a steak burger doesn't really need cheese either. Like if it's like a big bistro burger, like fried onions, maybe some jus. You don't really need cheese on that, but it's good. So all my burgers have cheese. It's either we use Swiss on the Swiss burger, Swiss mushroom burger. We have cheddar cheese on our original burger. It's cheddar cheese, caramelized onions, pesto mayo, and chipotle ketchup, all made in house. We have a Gouda burger, local Gouda, bacon, lettuce, homemade roasted tomato and roasted garlic jam, and garlic mayonnaise. It's a really good burger. Yeah. And that the Gouda here is amazing. They love Gouda here in Costa Rica. It's a local favorite. Actual Gouda cheese. And there's all types of Gouda here. There's herb Gouda, there's plain Gouda, there's aged Gouda. So I get that. I had to have a Gouda burger on the menu. And then we use American cheese on the Big Mac, or the Mac Daddy, we call it. You don't have nothing crazy. I'm not really trying to, like I was using Parmesan. I made a pizza burger a couple years ago. And I was using a Parmesan, Parmesan bechamel. And it was so expensive to have the Parmesan bechamel. So I only run it as a special because I don't want to spend $16 on one thing of Parmesan, which goes directly into the bechamel, the whole thing, including the rind, for the little piece. And then you have to hope that it doesn't go bad because you're using cream and Parmesan. Yeah. So if you don't sell it, you're just throwing that money away. So
and it's not good to waste cheese. Everybody should waste cheese. I
did add grilled cheese to the menu time, so I think you'll be happy to know that. I'm only going to say that I did add grilled cheese to the menu, so we have grilled cheese on our menu now too.
We'll most definitely have links to recipes and stuff. Some of the burgers he's mentioned, we might even add pictures on the screen while we're talking about it. But yeah, right now we'll just transition to the last question. And this one is just anything else you'd like to add about what you do, like the cost-benefit analysis, like the relationships you've made in it and things like that. And we'll most definitely have you back for like more. And then there's like last 3 questions after this. But one question I want to have that I hope you can address in this one. There's no such thing as the favorite or the thing, but you as somebody who's worked in the food service industry, what is your definition of the basics to make a burger? Like, what does a burger have to have for you? If an alien came to Earth and was like, what is a burger? What would you tell them? Like the basics for the burger are that you can do all sorts of other things based on it.
A burger is bread and meat between bread. That's it.
Yeah.
So in my opinion, like some people would say a classic burger is like the bun and the meat. And then the accoutrements are as subjective as taste is. Mm-hmm. Some people like peanut butter and jelly on their burgers. I don't. Some people like pineapple on their pizza. I don't. So it's like what constitutes a burger or pizza, let's say, is a standard. So the standard is meat and bread. Now, you can argue and say, well, the burger's in a pita, it's not a burger. Well, in my opinion, the burger refers to the actual ground beef. That's the burger. So you can have a burger with no bun. It's still a burger. So the burger, in my opinion, is just the meat. So I have to stay within the parameter of what that is. So that's part of the challenge of my job, but that's also the freedom is that I can take, I don't know, I can have the ramen burger. Yeah. I can take the concept of ramen and put all those flavors into a burger because the burger is my parameter. Mm-hmm. So all it is for me is bread and meat. That's it. And now everything I put onto it is part of the burger. But the burger just starts and ends with that.
Cool.
You can get fancy. Like a chicken sandwich is not a burger. It could be a chicken burger, I guess. You can make it with, you know what I mean? It has to do with some type of ground meat. It could be lamb even. Could be anything like that. Just ground meat formed into a patty, served between pieces of bread. Yeah. That's it. And anything else is like I said, subjective.
What was the first burger you personally made? You're like, this is a damn good burger. And now you're like, okay, this is really good.
Well,
if it was like a kid back then, like when was the first time you personally made a burger and you're like, this is a really good burger that you've personally made, even when you're in your teams or whatnot?
I made a lot of burgers leading up to the day I moved out here prior to this. Even when I first knew that I was going to do this, I took it more seriously. But I think what did it for me, because I didn't know. I think burgers are just good, period, right?
Yeah.
So what makes my burger better? I don't know. Well, I know now, but I didn't know then, let's say. And then I think the first couple of times I got reviews, my first few dozen, all my reviews are pretty good, but my first couple of reviews that I read that were like 5 stars and people saying stuff like, this is the best burger I've ever eaten in my life. Like, I'm not making stuff up. And I don't even necessarily agree because it's not the best burger I've eaten in my life. Okay. Yeah. I'm not going to say what it was other than mine, but we'll just say they're good. Mine are great, but let's be real, dude. I've had a foie gras burger with truffles in the city, so like whatever. But like when I first started reading those first few reviews, I was like, man, maybe I'm onto something, and that inspired me somehow to take it more seriously and to try bigger and better things. Because I was shaky, like, is this going to work? Because I don't know what's going to work here. A lot of things for a Costa Rican person, they like their burger like this. Mm-hmm. They like it like my burger. I told you my original burger has caramelized onions, cheddar cheese, pesto mayonnaise, chipotle ketchup, homemade brioche bun. Now, Costa Rican burger would be all that and lettuce and tomato. Okay. Every burger has lettuce and tomato and all that. So that's technically not a recipe. If you're putting lettuce and tomato on every burger, you're technically not recipes. You're just making burgers with lettuce and tomato. My burgers are focused recipes, meaning if there's lettuce and tomato on the burger, it's because it's meant to be there. Yeah. It's not going to go on the onion burger, caramelized onion burger, where he has caramelized onions. I'm not putting lettuce and tomato on it unless you ask me to do it, because my burgers have recipes. The parameters are the recipe. There's burgers with lettuce and tomato. There's only one of them. The other burgers don't have the. See what I'm saying? So it goes back to like me knowing a little bit better than the customer, me having time in rank, time in the job, and then also getting great reviews. Like I made them a Mac Daddy. I remember the first time I made Mac Daddy, which is our version of the Big Mac, but it's different. It has like we do our pickled red onions, which McDonald's doesn't do. We do sesame oil on it, which McDonald's doesn't do. We don't have the sesame bun. We don't have the middle club. Our Big Mac sauce blows their Big Mac sauce out of the water. And we use real meat.
Yeah, that's a key part. That's a key part of the burger.
So the first time I did this, I served it to someone. I'll never forget what they said. They looked at me. I was like, "It's okay." I thought they were mad at me. He made his face. Looked at me. He looked like he was mad. I was like, "Dude, are you okay?" He's like, "Man, don't you ever say to anybody this is a Big Mac. This is not your version of a Big Mac. This is something completely different. Don't you ever disrespect your brand by calling it a Big Mac ever again." And that he blew me away because it isn't a Big Mac. It certainly isn't. No relationship to the Big Mac.
Yeah.
Just because I mix ketchup, mayo, and mustard and call it Big Mac sauce is not Big Mac sauce. It's just burger sauce, right? But that compliments and those little compliments, they're the only thing that kept me going.
Sure.
Because I wanted to give up more times than I can count on my hands and feet. Give up. Like last week, I wanted to give up. I'm like, I want to quit, but I can't quit because I'm the damn owner. Like I walked into my restaurant, I was like, I quit. Do something at the thing.
Yeah.
But I don't quit. Like just, my frustrations, whatever. But no, you can't leave. You're leaving when the ship goes down. That's it now.
That's one thing that I see around that I find it unfortunate that you see people who are wanting to be, it's not just they want acceptance, they want to be allowed to do but they want you to empower them, to big up them, to say what they're doing is grand. And there's a part where they don't get that because you can tell somebody, oh yeah, you're this. As of this, okay, we'll cheer you for that. But they know that they haven't achieved that thing. And people don't really understand how valuable it is when you've put in that effort or something. And even just a kid comes and says, oh, this is really great. That feeling is really potent. It's really powerful. I hate how often people say, oh, that's a powerful thing you said because Obama made a speech. No, that's not powerful. He doesn't know who you are. He doesn't care. When somebody actually experiences something that you've put in effort with, they don't know your history. They don't know that. And there's so many people losing that. That's why I'm so thankful for this series. And I've been thinking about doing this for such a good long time. And to have you tell us about this part, you can say, I can just get a bit to see that this guy's been through this. Like he knows what he's talking about. These are the things and these great things that he's achieved. He's just able to give us just a bit of this through this. And for you to just say like, look, to do all this things, someone might look at that and be like, that's amazing. But they don't understand how this person just saying, this is the greatest thing ever was a part of that great thing. So you saying something small to somebody who has really earned it and achieved it can lead to so many other massive things.
It means so much to that person. And I think that's made me more aware of it too, saying it to others. Like I'm certainly know for a fact that I've inspired other people because of either what I've said or what I've done, because I feel like it means so much to me when I hear a random stranger say something that's genuinely a good thing, because you can have that moment between two strangers that is undeniably unable to be recreated somehow. Like we as friends, we talk so much and you share things all the time, but it kind of takes away the power of those things. But like let's say you're going through a really hard time and you meet somebody on the subway who somehow touches your life and helps you in that moment. Well, it doesn't matter if that person was a stranger in that moment. They gave an irreplaceable moment to you. And those people, I had a kid recently. He's a kid. He's a young man in his 20s. He's a friend of a friend. I don't even know him that well. I didn't even recognize him when I saw him. My friend told me who he was. This guy's giving me all these compliments, almost like these flowery compliments. He speaks English. He's giving me these flowery compliments, almost like I'm waiting for somebody to pull the rug for me, because it's kind of awkward. I don't even know how to take it. And then he looks at me, he's like, you are going to be the next McDonald's. He wasn't joking, dude. Like, I don't necessarily believe that. I don't even know if I want to be that big ever, but like, like he had the faith. He said that. And then I find out this guy, he's a lot of money. His family has a lot of money. So, sometimes when you hear something from, like, I'm always looking like, well, what's the next springboard, right? If I'm going to, my goal is to open up at least four or five more of these in Central America, and maybe even Costa Rica, and maybe one as soon as next year. We'll see how things go. But I'm not looking for investors. I'm open to investors, but I'm not looking for them, because I always feel like when the moment's right, if you do the due diligence in your craft, in your job, and you're doing the right thing for your business at all times, the things that you need will come to you. You won't have to look for anyone, because the person that you're looking for will be the guy that's going to try to scam you or try to take something away from your brand. And I told my partner recently, now more than ever, because we're getting a little bit more of a buzz in the community, we have to be more protective of my brand now more than ever, because people see your success and they see your product. They know what a good product that I have. They're going to try to piggyback off that or straight up steal it.
There is an aspect of that you're talking about the start of how somebody was naming that burger after somebody in the United States of America. That's something I've seen here in Kenya also. The copyright and kind of intellectual property protection isn't as stringent. Like in America, you draw something that's similar to someone else, you get sued. But I've seen in other developing countries, they use all these names of American things like branding, all this type of things.
Yeah.
Like you'll see like buses branded with like Disney, and of course they don't have the contract with like Aladdin, but that's there. So I'm sure that's something that you have to deal with.
India is famous for that, making a movie that's almost like Star Wars but called something else. It's like called like Space Wars. Not Star Wars, but it's like a bad ripoff of Star Wars. I love it. I love that type of stuff, by the way. But my burger place is called. So there's one other place that I saw called The Perfect Burger. It's called, and I forget where it is. But my restaurant, just for what you're saying, is called Perfect Burger Costa Rica. Is the name. So even if we show up in Texas one day, place is called Perfect Burger Costa Rica. That's the name of my restaurant because that's the only name of the restaurant. That's the only restaurant name of that existence. You see what I'm saying? So I was even thinking about 4 years ago, even when I did the LLC, to be smart about how I named it and to look up all that shit in advance. In any of my recipes, I'm real cautious about how I present them and also how I name them.
Yeah.
Because I'm not trying to get sued by anybody. That's the worst thing that can happen to a small business is getting taken out by a corporate conglomerate because you did something too close to In-N-Out. Well, I don't think In-N-Out's, I think I'm better than In-N-Out. Publicly, I'll say that. Yeah. But, I think here's my point. If you're doing, I guess we can get around to wrap this up and saying, never give up, always follow your dream. And if you're doing what you're doing, if you have your eyes on your fries, how they say, if you're in class, you're not worried about the guy next to you taking the test and if he's finished or if he's picking his nose or if he's chewing gum or copying because you're too busy filling out your work. Yeah. And I feel like if you do your due diligence and you have power, you have the purity of the intention. Like I try to approach every day with purity of intention. Like, what do I want to do? And even if you're being an asshole, be an asshole to your purest intentions, if that's your intention. Don't come off one way and be an asshole or vice versa. Yeah. Even something like that. But I try to go into every day with just keep your due diligence. Don't worry about what this guy's doing. Don't worry about what this guy's doing. And when you finally pick your head up, you realize your success at that moment. Cool. You're never going to have to chase success if you're just doing it. And you're doing it right. The natural order. See, the universe is chaos. Let's get deep for a second. The universe is chaos, but it's always trying to order itself into order. That's the nature of this universe. So unless you're a complete spaz that's trying to crash the plane, you're not going to crash the plane if you show up every day and try to do it. You show up every day and try to be a tennis player. You may not ever be Andre Agassi, but you might become a really good tennis player. You might even become a successful tennis player. Go and play tennis in other places. Yeah. But you have to show up every day to a certain degree and do it. You can't be worried about your competition so much as just continue to do your own thing. Yeah. And never. You got to
figure out what you're capable of doing. Yeah, that's a good genuine message to have there. But
because I'm testing what I'm capable of. What if I was capable of this only, and this job somehow, due to what it requires from me, pull something deep from out of me and create something new. That's what I feel like I'm stepping into now. It's creating a whole new Steve that didn't exist before. It's a whole new accountable person. I'm holding more accountability to myself. I'm becoming a more compassionate love, husband and owner and boss, and all these things have developed me into a better human, period, aside from burgers. Like burgers are just like the icing on the cake at the end of the day.
Yeah. That's kind of part of what this series is about. Yeah. So thanks so much for coming in, just to show like the people, it's what they do versus just the thing itself. And you're definitely giving us a lot to think about that we'll definitely come back on. So that was it for the
show.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Steve.
I didn't really know what the hell we were gonna. I didn't know I knew the format, but like I said, I'm glad we had this long talk. It was like a long format, and I don't know what you're gonna use.
We're going to use it all. We're not using anything else.
Next time I come on, I would like to talk about something that maybe we were talking about before we started talking about the restaurant. And that was like some more topical things, because I love talking to some big minds. And like you said, I think from what now talking to you, part of what you said about what your goal is from these series, I think it's bringing people together just to have dialogue. And if sometimes this dialogue takes us in a really big circle like it did today, but I think we brought it back to the point that we have. And I think it all kind of parlays into what we meant anyways, what you meant from this anyways. I had to tell you the story because it's a wild story. I think Kurt was part of this story. We worked together at this place for, trust me, we held up the walls at this place, man. There was some days that if we didn't show up, the place was not going to open. I'm not even joking around. And if that wasn't training to become a boss at some point, like, I don't know what is. I don't know what is. Remember this one time, one last quick funny story. I'll bring this up and then we're out. I think, and if you want to kick me off, but this guy Jose we worked with, there was this old school Puerto Rican dude from the Bronx. And he did some time for something, but he was a really cool guy. And one time the chefs were late and we worked for some very let's say, how do we say, uptight people, right?
Ornery, I was going to say.
Very ornery and very uptight. Guys that don't like you stepping in their realm. So Jose's our head, he's our head porter. He's like the maintenance guy. So the chef's late, and I'm like, Chef Song's not here yet. And I have a table. What I'm going to do? He looks at me with his dead serious face. He goes, y'all make the sushi, man. I'm like, first off, you call it sushi. He didn't call it sushi. So I'm a little nervous about that. He's like, no, man, you think these guys are smarter than me? And I thought for a second, I was like, no. And he made the sushi. So that just goes to show you that even the dishwasher, if you put your mind to something, he can make the sushi. And when I told the chefs that he made the sushi, their face, man, that man's head almost popped off his shoulders, man. Man. His head, he said, who made the sushi? And the other thing, and I was like, Jose did. He was like, who made the sushi again? And I said it again, and I was giggling like a schoolboy inside, watching this guy's head almost fly off his shoulders. I was like, if you didn't show up late, dude, my man wouldn't have had to make the sushi.
But he's not the type who would admit, oh yeah, I was late. It was my fault anyway. It's just,
that was even the best part. Because I was trying to get him to say something like how he screwed up, and he wouldn't admit to messing up. And then he also couldn't yell at Jose for making the sushi because dude was late. My man said with the utmost confidence, man, I'll make that sushi. You think those guys are smarter than me? I was like, no. No, you did 10 years at Rikers Island. They're definitely not smarter than you, my friend. You know what the hell is up. You know how to make a grilled cheese without a griddle. You know how to make ramen noodles in a toilet. I mean, you're the genius. They don't get irons. It's an art. Found a property or skid bin somewhere at Rikers or something. It will teach you a lot about life. But definitely,
I think there's YouTube channels. There's like a prison cooking YouTube channel I've seen before. I haven't actually watched any stuff on it, but there's one like a
whole other episode.
We'll talk about it another time.
I'll talk about anything next time. Anything you guys want to talk about.
Yeah.
So with the last three, we don't really have this filled out yet. So, and the people we've done the talks with so far, we've told them we'll come back for the last three, because the last three was like, do you have a question for us? And then the next question was, do you have a question for anyone else? Answering the questionnaire, that may be reading or listening to these answers. And then, would you like to take a random requested questions? And we don't have any random requested questions right now. We're still building that up. So at least for right now,
if anybody want to ask me anything, I mean, I'll pretty much answer anything in the comment section that's not that personal. But I mean, I think I covered. I mean, I covered a lot, and I know I didn't know what I was walking into today. But like I said, if you just fire me up, I'm just gone. You know, I drink a pot of coffee when I was talking to you guys. So
all right.
What I was going to ask you guys is, what's your goal? I mean, you talked a little bit about it, but what's your whole goal from this series? Is it to be like, I'd like to see the series in a perspective, like in a few years, to see how it developed. So is that kind of what you're trying to do? Is like just bring a bunch of people with common interests together, or is it more like throw it in the water and see what happens?
It's not necessarily common interest. Like I've had this idea for some time. Like it literally was in high school, and I was thinking, like it was just like sophomore year, and I was just like, or I don't know, sometime I was just looking around, like I'm probably going to know somebody who knows someone who's done pretty much everything. And then I was also asked, people used to ask me, okay, you lived in France and you moved to Kenya, then you moved to the United States of America and you've been to these places. Do you miss places? And I was like, no, I miss the people and the things. And I wish it was kind of a situation where the people that I know could meet the other people that I know. And from my experience of being in high school in different cliques, like I'd know somebody in this clique, know somebody in that other clique. And then eventually they would meet each other while thinking, oh, that person's weird in that clique. Then because I was close enough with this person, I could get along with this person, I noticed they could get along together. So this is just part of just like storytelling and things like that. And I personally am going more into like getting a studio up and going to tell stories and get more like design stuff, create games and interactive VR type of things. That's what I'm going with. And this is also part of it. Just these stories are, we are the only sentient beings that we know of. So we are the ones who do define what reality is. And it's just, we're not stories. People want to be like, I am the star, or I am the hero of this. It's like, no, we are creatures that tell stories. We are not stories. Like, we're not just simple cookie cutter things like, oh, if you want to run a restaurant, this is just how you do it. But now we know a little bit, a tiny bit about how Steve had a food truck and then now has a restaurant. We know a tiny bit of that. And that tiny bit has now been, you've put that into the whole story of humanity, of Earthlings, of the universe.
I don't think the story was, my story is not as important as the lesson that I try to put forth to it. That's like, there's so much lessons here besides my little story of Burger's restaurant. I mean, that's the smallest part of it. I felt like if I could tell anything to your listeners, would be those three things I told you. Don't give up, follow your dreams, and continue to do what you do, and don't worry about what people do around you. Because you never know who's going to be the next McDonald's, the next Elon Musk, the next great mind, the next great healer. You don't know. And to someone to tell you that you are not is limiting talk, and I don't subscribe to any of that. Because if I would listen to any of these naysayers, because so many people's fears and expectations came over to my world when I told them I was moving here. And they're like, what are you, crazy? What are you doing? That's all their stuff. That's their boggle. That's not mine. So learn a little bit about the lesson, not necessarily about, if you have any questions about my burger business, fine. But I answer questions that are a little bit more, important.
Yeah, and structure-wise with this, eventually it's kind of a situation where everything we mentioned in the conversation, audio's gone off. You can kind of have a thing where it's like, okay, so somebody meets. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. So you kind of have a situation where it's like anyone you mention or any job that's mentioned, you have like a connection type of thing. So that's structure-wise how we'll do. And then, as we mentioned, you'll come on for conversations about other topics that are not necessarily this in the I Know Great People. Once you've been part of this, people can come on. You can start your own threads of it, but we just want to have this kind of thing to show this is just people living on Earth doing different things in different kind of ways. You don't know who you might know and who you might be able to have a conversation with. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for taking a lot of time out. Yep.
Dude, that was a lot of fun. And normally, if it was the other day, I wouldn't have this much time, but I'm glad it kind of meandered because I knew if we just kind of went with it, I think we had a good conversation. I appreciate you guys.
Yeah, thank you. All right, cool.
Yes, most definitely. As I mentioned, there will be links below wherever you listen to this to pictures of the things. The website will
I'll send you some stuff too.
There's an Instagram page too. Yeah, so people can probably link to that.
I can be found at Perfect Burger, Costa Rica. Perfect Burger CR is what you look for on Instagram, and I also have perfectburger.com, perfectburgercr.com. You can check out if you want.
All right. Great.
Yeah.
That's
cool.
it.
So,
All right, thanks. All right,
guys.
Bye. Bye-bye, Steve. Thanks a lot.
Nice talking to you guys. I'll talk to you soon.
You too. Bye. We'll talk soon.
Later,
Bye.
guys.
And the small flowers. Not as teeny as these guys. Very tiny. But small dome right